Hello, Joe.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Joe Schmo's channel and my wonderful co-host, Salty Sleuth Investigates. It's been a while since we've caught up on the Delphi case.
It has. It's been a little too long, probably, but we've had a lot to take in, and life gets in the way sometimes too. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's only like calendar-wise, it's only been a couple of days, but there has been so much that has come out in the trial. We've heard from tool mark experts or the state's testing lab. We've heard from DNA experts. We've heard from law enforcement officers, and then it sounds like today they're playing Rick Allen's interrogation videos in court today. So there's a lot going on, and the jury's probably got way more than we do, or at least as much as we have to think about.
Oh yeah, they do, and they're asking a lot of great questions, which is good. Because we all have questions, so obviously they're going to have questions as well. I mean, I would hope they do, and they seem to be bringing some good ones. So
Yes. What is going on? Hold on.
okay.
I have an echo going on. I gotta.
Uh-oh.
There we go. I got my echo fixed. It was just a little private echo in my own head. So
Don't even get me started about the things in our heads.
So I think what I want to start with is I actually want to start with one of the mainstream media's Bob's recap of day 9 in the trial. I think it's pretty interesting. I'm definitely not going to go anywhere near his 46 minutes, but I think they hit on some key things early in this video. So
Okay, great.
let's play that to start with. Here we go.
Katie Jackson Lindsay. But first, our senior investigative reporter Bob Siegel and reporter Emily Longnecker are in Delphi right now. Richard Allen, as you know, is charged in the murders of Abby and Libby 2 years ago. But today we heard there's no DNA evidence connecting Allen to this crime, right?
Oh, stupid ads. Come on.
Dad bods deserve better teas.
I found this brand called.
Yeah, Scott, we got some very technical and very scientific testimony today. One talking about DNA evidence, another talking about blood patterns. It made for a really hard day for both the families and for the jurors in court.
Yeah, and I would say everybody in court that had to see those crime scene photos again, very technical testimony from that blood spatter expert, but it also became emotional because he was literally describing the last moments of Abby and Libby's lives.
Absolutely. Let's get you up to speed right now on the 2 witnesses who testified today. The first, Stacy Bozanovsky. She is the state's 27th witness to take the stand, and she is a DNA analyst who works for the Indiana State Police Crime Lab in Indianapolis. She tested dozens and dozens of pieces of evidence from the crime scene to see if the state could detect if the killer left behind any DNA. And the second witness, Pat Cicero. He is a major with the LaPorte County Sheriff's Department, and he's a longtime crime scene reconstructionist. His specialty is as a blood pattern stain analyst, and he testified about the huge amount of blood at the crime scene and how he thinks it got there. We'll begin with the DNA testimony. Bozanovsky, she is the lady on the right side of the video you're seeing. She told the jury she tested clothing from Abby and Libby found at the murder scene, skin cells from under their fingernails, blood found on their bodies and on the ground and from a nearby tree. The big conclusions from the state's DNA expert, Richard Allen's DNA was not found anywhere at the crime scene, including on the cartridge that the prosecutor claims came from one of Allen's guns.
Let's just think about that for a second. In today's world where we've had DNA evidence, let's see, when was the first DNA case? Late 90s, I think, maybe, was the first DNA case in trial. So almost
We've
30
had
years.
a lot of advancements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And no DNA evidence was found tying Richard Allen to the scene.
That's hard to believe, isn't it? I mean, in some cases it's not, depending on, and I'm going to refer back to the Koberger case because the only thing that we know that they have so far in that case is a little bit of DNA on that snap of the sheath. Now, there's many speculations as to why, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to at least find something. And they found a lot of things apparently and tested a number of things, but none of it is Richard Allen's.
Or anybody else's that they could conclusively find any matches to, right?
Well, I'm assuming because they didn't, of course, can't bring up certain names during the trial, but we know that Patrick Westphal stated in his 3rd interview that he gave DNA sample to the investigators in Delphi. We know that the investigators in Delphi reached out to the investigators in the Paul Etter case and requested his DNA as well. Why are you requesting DNA from other potential suspects if you can't run the proper test on what you already have? And did those guys, were they ruled out because of DNA? Were they no match to what little bit you have or what little bit you did run? I mean, makes no sense to me.
And do you know what suspect mentioned possible DNA on the bodies and was never tested for DNA?
Yeah.
Initials EF.
Mm-hmm.
But he
And,
was never tested.
when you claim if they find my spit, excuse me, I'm about to take you right back in. Got some more questions, and I'm definitely going to need a DNA swab now. I don't know why they let that go the way they did.
He testified on the stand. That was Murphy, right? I think.
I believe it was.
He testified on the stand on August 1st, and he testified that is his biggest regret of his part in the investigation was not following up on that.
It should be. I mean, and honestly, at this point, I'm right there with Andrea. I'm pissed now because this is not just about getting a man off because we want to get, throw shade at police and all these things that people on Twitter want to accuse people of doing that are asking real questions. But when you have a man that you are already interviewing concerning this case tell you, what if I spit, or what if you can find my spit, and you just blow it off and let him walk back into his house, and now you want to sit here and cry talking about how that's one of your biggest regrets? You damn right it should be one of your biggest regrets of your entire life, because as an investigator you shouldn't have done that. You should have known, but apparently they don't have real good training, so maybe I'm holding them a little too high a standard, but y'all need to be held to a higher standard.
Well, they had plenty of help from, if they don't feel they're trained enough, they had plenty of help. They had FBI right there
They
with
certainly
them
did.
up until 2019.
Yeah, until something happened and they no longer got along, or whatever the hell happened there. And FBI is like, see ya, figure it out on your own.
Yep.
And then you got the Delphi, the investigators in Kentucky on Bill and Peggy's case reaching out. People want to blow that off right now to this day. They had a specific person and a specific item, an item that they were looking into that they felt was tied to the Delphi murders. So they take and go to Delphi and they follow someone around collecting evidence on this person. Who is that person? Even if it was ruled out they were involved with Peggy and Bill's murders, which were absolutely staged and ritualistic, items moved around all over the condo, the person stayed in there with the bodies for hours. Who is that person y'all went to Delphi to look at that you thought could be tied to that case? And what item of particular interest? Now, I get they're not going to tell us, but we can't blow that stuff off like it's nothing. Even if it was not tied to their crime, there was a reason they believed it could have been. So it makes it makes no sense, some of this stuff that we're hearing, from these Delphi investigators.
No, it's like I told you last night. It just seems like the state's case is just crumbling before our eyes.
Oh
Like
yeah,
Nick
yeah.
McClelland painted this picture in his opening statement that Richard Allen, they're going to prove that Richard Allen is guilty. And the only thing they've proven so far is that really shitty police work was done. And they have
Yeah,
they have nothing that conclusively ties Richard Allen to the scene of the crime. To
and,
the High Bridge area and the trails that day, yes. Was he out there? Yes. But they have
yeah, but
nothing
they
that
didn't
ties him
even.
to the crime.
Oops, sorry, I need to turn I need to turn my phone off. They didn't even prove that because the man himself told us he was there. He told you right after the crimes happened. So you being able to place him there on your little fancy video, so he should be on video riding past the Hoosier Harvester at some point to go park because he literally told you he was there doing that. So I'm supposed to pat you on the back because you got that car passing by on a video. Where's the man walking muddy and bloody? Show me that, and then maybe I'll pat you on the back. Yeah, these investigators are just crazy.
Yeah.
Conclusion, she says Abby and Libby's DNA was not found on any of the items taken from Allen's home when investigators served a search warrant there. She also testified that specimens from the sexual assault test kits administered on Abby and Libby's bodies showed no signs or DNA to suggest that sexual assault took place. Bozanovsky said there was some male DNA found in evidence from the crime scene, but she said that's not unusual to find in the environment naturally or on clothes washed in a family's washing machine, for example. She said the only definitive male whose DNA was found at the scene belonged to someone who works in the state crime lab. Again, nothing from Richard Allen. And keep in mind, this testimony came from a witness presented by the state. Hearing what the state's expert had to say, you might think that this testimony actually came from the defense. It was not. It came from the state. And it seemed to be an attempt on the state's part to really get out in front of what the jury is going to hear.
Get out in front of what the jury's going to hear. They just heard it.
Yeah, it's what it sound like to me they were doing. They're trying to present a DNA expert in 2024 to tell this jury we can't really do a lot with DNA these days. That's what that sounds like to me. You're going to come out and talk about all these hairs you found and all these samples you took, and it's all inconclusive, and oh, some not tested because it might degrade it. Quit insulting our intelligence, and apparently you got a really smart juror who knows a lot about DNA over there. So good luck passing that bullshit off on them.
The defense say, which is the fact that there was no DNA tying Richard Allen to the crime scene in any way whatsoever, helps to prove that he did not commit the murders. The defense, though, they did have a chance to come up and cross-examine the witness, and they took their time and spent over an hour doing that, and they kind of pounded away at this witness.
Yeah, they did. And, on that cross, Bozanovsky said, look, DNA technology is always advancing. It's ever changing, kind of as a reason, giving a reason for holding on to some of the hair evidence.
Did you hear that? The reason that they didn't test some of it is because DNA science is ever changing and ever evolving.
Of course it is, but that's not you test with what you have available for testing at that time. You don't save critical evidence in case we need it in the future. What are you going to need it in the future for if this is your man? Because y'all know there's more than one person involved.
They sent 72 hairs to the FBI for analysis. And Jennifer Auger asking, well, could you have tested more? Could you have sent it to other labs? And Bozanovsky saying the decision was made not to test them at this time.
The decision was made.
This quote here from Jennifer Auger, she said, but this is the time. Richard Allen is on trial now. And she said that very emphatically, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And Bozanovsky said, Richard Allen is on trial now.
That's a moment that really stood out where, it's like, hey, you had your chance to be able to do additional testing. Specifically, she was talking about hair follicles that were found at the crime scene. And she said, hey, this wasn't my call. We made the decision not to test it .
A decision was made. I wonder whose decision that was.
They're all going to pass the buck on whose decision that was.
Right.
I'm gonna hold the person who says they're the lead investigator responsible, just like
So
any other job, top
here's the
management
thing.
down. You know.
Yep.
Go
Yep.
ahead.
And we know who's at the top.
Exactly.
We know who's at the top. We see you,
We know
Mr.
who claims they're. Yeah, we see you. Boy, do we. He's nowhere to be found right now, is he?
No, nope. Have not
I mean,
seen him.
what did he cross his hands and magically disappear to a portal somewhere? He done went into another portal, y'all, in another world. He's like, "Ooh, I'm out of here." Bullshit. Okay, you're gonna have to come back eventually. I, I guess they've never heard of Othram Labs because that's where a lot of DNA samples get sent to that have a really difficult time testing. And Andrea brought this up in her stream last night. Those of us who followed the Kerber case, we all took a crash course in DNA, hard, deep, and heavy. So when this stuff started coming out and they're talking about it, I'm really paying attention. And I was really paying attention when Andrea was talking last night because it's really important stuff. And the fact that they're making these decisions not to send it to outside labs and all different things, there are very good DNA labs in the country. And they are one of the top. Orthram FDLE and here in Florida has a very big, very good lab. Now, if they're sending what they allegedly found on that sheath in Idaho was so little, and that's going to come into play during that case because the amount was so small. But they were able to pull the STR and develop that DNA. So they do have the capability to do it. Stop telling us they don't. Because they're banking on the general public not knowing a thing about what we're talking, outside of the true community. They're banking on the general public not knowing anything. And I think they were banking on those jurors not knowing much. That's why they brought this expert in to explain how complicated it really is, when it's really not. It's just not a stage in the game in 2024. So if you're completely convinced this is your man, I would be, the minute you tried to make that arrest because you think you got probable cause, you should have been like, guys, now's the time to test that other DNA we haven't tested yet. Let's make sure. But they don't want it.
Right.
They never wanted to make sure of anything in this
You would
case.
you would keep holding on to it though if, say, you had a person of interest that you were fitting the crime to, or if you
Or if you
believed
had
it
no suspects at all.
exactly, and you thought, well, maybe somewhere down the road, maybe he'll get found not guilty, and then we need to look for the person who really did
Well,
this.
yeah. And there is something to be said about having a very small amount and degrading it over time. Because one of the local missing girl cases here, when I talk with her mom, that's one of our biggest conversations. They did recover a very small amount of DNA from her vehicle. And it has been ran through CODIS with no matches. But they do not want to continue to compare and test against other samples because over time it will degrade what they have. And they need to hold on to it, get a rock solid suspect to make a match. And that hasn't happened. So they're just like holding on to it, which in that case makes sense because there's not one single suspect, right? This is different. You have someone you're telling the world absolutely unequivocally did this. Now is the time to get that tested to take care of it, But I feel like they didn't want to because they absolutely know there's somebody else involved or a whole other person, not Rick Allen. Either way, whether you believe Rick's innocent or guilty, somebody else was involved. That DNA could be theirs. So they're not wanting to degrade it because of that reason. They're just holding on for hope that person's going to pop out of the woodwork and say, oh, it was me all along. It's not going to happen. Get your profile
Now, and it's like, hey,
and do it.
Yep. Now, like O'Shea said, now is the time.
Well,
you
you
got-
can get,
this
if
is
you
the
develop
time.
that profile out, they could have done the genealogy, reverse genealogy, right? That's a proven method. It's been used in multiple cases. That is not new either. And Paul Holes did say he consulted with the Delphi investigators. That apparently didn't go too far. It was just a consultation. And CC Moore did offer to come over there and work for free, and they turned her down. So it doesn't make any sense why they would continue to do. But nothing they've ever done has made sense. So I'm tired of trying to make sense of what they're doing. But this man doesn't look like he's your guy.
That's what a lot of people are saying. It'll be interesting to see what the jury says in the end, because we have the two most important pieces of this case to date, and they've only become the most important pieces because the state has not presented anything conclusive at this point. Did the
No, they
toolmark
haven't.
No, did the toolmark expert not say on cross that it's possible that those cartridges, or that cartridge, that unspent round, was cycled through another firearm? I'm 99% sure I heard that
Yeah.
in somebody's
Yes.
trial notes.
Yeah, she still couldn't make a conclusive. And I got major issues with that lady as well. You work for the ISPs, my first one. It should have been the defense didn't even get a chance to present an expert from their side of things, which
Tobin,
is a
right?
big mistake. Yeah, I don't care if you're Tobin, you could have picked out anybody you wanted. You had the right to present your own expert to go against, not really go against, not the right word, but to dispute her findings. And the way she went about testing and proving in her eyes, Miss, I'm never wrong, doesn't make any sense to a lot of people. You know, you couldn't make any comparison with an unspent round, so you decided to fire the weapon to try to make a comparison, and took you 6 tries or so before you're like, oh, look, I finally got a match. We're not buying it, lady. And I don't think the jury bought that either, honestly, from what I listened to as far as the wrap ups of what happened with that witness. I don't think the jury's buying it. And that's the way I felt with the Casey Anthony case this far into that case. It was like, oh, this jury's not buying this she did it thing. They're just not, because the evidence against her was so heavily disputed by the defense team. And they were right. I hate to say, people come at me. I don't have an opinion anymore on Casey Anthony's guilt or innocence. I have an opinion on that court case. Her lawyer did an effective job to dispute the circumstantial evidence presented against her. It's the same thing we're seeing here. Florida has very strict rules for juries upon conviction, and you have to go with beyond a reasonable doubt. And they gave plenty of reasonable doubt in that case, unfortunately. Now, this case is different, and rather not presenting rock solid evidence of anything other than we kind of fumbled along the way more times than one. And they all but admitted it, and actually did admit it a couple of times.
Yep. Yeah. They've lost evidence. They've failed to collect evidence. They failed to collect evidence in a timely fashion. They drew conclusions from several eyewitnesses near the trails that day, with very different descriptions of the bridge guy, or just unknown males that they encountered somewhere near the trails that day. Not necessarily bridge guy. Guy they took from the video, and I think bridge guy video morphed with somebody's eyewitness account. But there were 3 or 4 other eyewitnesses out there that encountered other males that with completely different descriptions that aren't a match.
Yeah, and the witnesses they brought, the ones they chose to bring into court, didn't describe the man sitting in the courtroom. None of them did.
Not a single time.
No, and you got Miss Combative Eyewitness up there, muddy, bloody. Oh, but I also saw a group of people with a highly stressed woman. Now we're finding out there's some female DNA down there they don't know about. Rule out Kelsey's hair. I understand that. I understand transferred DNA. And if I wear my sister's shirt or live with my sister, I'm possibly going to have one of her hairs on me. That's not out of the ordinary to me. Hair. It's everywhere. I can't stand to brush my hair in his vehicle. Your hair is going to fly all over my car. It's a fact. But So it does not surprise me a hair from Kelsey was found there. But you got an unknown female DNA down there as well that you haven't bothered. And in my DNA video that I made, Abby's mom said that early on they did come take DNA samples from everybody in the families, even from inside their homes. So don't come at, oh, they didn't go and test the families, because yes, they did. Anna Williams will tell you that they did. So you should have ruled out the family members' DNA from the scene, just like you got your techs that are messy and sloppy and are going to transfer their DNA to the state, to the crime scene evidence. You got to rule that person out, which they did. You got to do the same thing with family members, especially if you're dealing with touch and transfer DNA. So, but you got an unknown female down there as well. Could
which
that
they
have been
didn't,
this
which they
highly
didn't
stressed
test,
woman?
which
Exactly.
they didn't test. They didn't even
Why are-
test it.
And they're not looking for any female DNA because we believe it was a man, because we believe it was sexual assault. What, are you kidding me? Do you know how many women are involved with men who help them carry out their assaults on women? I can go pull up all the cases and show them if they need me to. But so, was there a woman involved that helped lure victims, or that's happened in cases as well? So why would you just rule out women because there was a possible sexual assault that obviously didn't even occur?
Yeah, we didn't think it was important to test the DNA of the fingers or the hair in Abby's fingers. We didn't think it was important to take shoe prints that were near the scene of the crime or on the hillside leading down to the scene of the crime, because there were lots of searchers out there. Why would we take samples of those? We didn't think it was important to take a core body temp of the girls when they were found, because why would we need to determine an accurate time of death? We didn't think it was important to snag that that Hoosier Harvester video in 2017.
Yeah, and another DB, I'm seeing your comments there. I was just pulled up the Wish TV thing a minute ago and was getting ready to review it right before we went live. My biggest problem right now with some of the stuff they didn't test with that scarf they found, because some of the witnesses claim there was a man with a scarf and different things like that. They even tried to say Bridge Guy video, is he got a scarf on, or things like that. And then we're hearing that Abby, I keep doing that. Abby was possibly restrained at some point. But you find a green scarf near your victim's clothing in the creek, and y'all decide that, oh, that's old and muddy. You described the tie-dye shirt Libby was wearing as very muddy, and a shoe is very muddy. Did you decide not to test them because of that? They just looked dirty? You found a scarf that you didn't think was a part of your crime scene, and you didn't bother to do anything with it. That's a huge mistake. Even
Yeah,
if you couldn't have pulled anything off of it, at least you should have tried.
Right. You take in as, it's common sense. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not an investigator. I'm not a private investigator. I grew up watching Perry Mason and reading her reports, but
love that.
it's
I mean, it's
common
like
sense.
yeah,
It's
a common sense. It's like I said, if all of us armchair detectives, as they want to call us, sleuths, whatever you want to label us as, if we're smart enough to know these things should have been done, A, B, and C, how come you guys didn't know to do that? No wonder Ann Taylor wants all those training records over there in the Idaho case. She knows what she's doing. Not saying that that these defense attorneys don't, because they obviously do. But that's why you request training records on the investigators that investigated your case and your client. How good are they? How many past mistakes have they made? Now you got little Miss Gun expert up there. I'm never wrong. Well, honey, maybe they should go back and evaluate all those cases you said you were never wrong about. Because is it a standard protocol not to have any other experts come up and dispute what you're telling them?
That's just the most asinine statement. It ranks right up there with Liggett saying, when he was asked on cross-examination, he was asked, is it possible that there was another male that was closer to the girls whose audio we hear saying down the hill? that it wasn't Bridge Guy. And Liggett literally says, no, it's not humanly possible. And
Yeah.
if I were Rosie cross-examining him right then and there, I would have been like, oh, wait, do you have video that we don't know about? Do you have video surrounding the girls that we don't know about? And of course, the answer is no. Then how can you conclusively determine that it's humanly impossible for there to be another person, another man at the end of the bridge where the girls were when that audio was taken? How? So oh, I've never made a mistake. I have never made a mistake. Are you freaking kidding me?
You may not see it as a mistake, and that might not be the technical term we should use, but your inconclusiveness is grounds for mistake. I mean, I don't care how you word it, lady, you could be wrong, especially when you've got to fire that gun so many times before you finally get a match. And I think
No,
one of the greatest moments. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a scientific principle that there is uncertainty associated with every single scientific finding. There is some level of uncertainty. And that was kind of addressed a little bit, but not nearly to my level of satisfaction on the crossing of the state's experts. What is your level of uncertainty in matching that unspent round to Rick Allen's gun? Is it 1 in 5,000? Is it 1 in 50,000? Is it 1 in 500,000? I mean, she admitted that it could have been cycled through another weapon. So, what is your uncertainty that it was Rick Allen's gun that's a match to? I want to know the number. There is a scientific way to meet the 95% confidence level in any scientific examination. If you can't tell me what that is, you're not a scientist.
Well, anybody at this point that owned the same type of pistol he had could now be a suspect in this crime. There's a possibility that unspent round could have come from your gun.
Well, the crime lab didn't even narrow it down to just 6 hours. They also said send us anything that could have come from a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber pistol also.
Yeah. And she had other weapons. And man, so if I heard this correctly, when they were searching the Deer Creek, they found a number of guns down there. So how many people are just throwing their guns into the water willy-nilly? Even if it's jammed, broken, something happened to it, it tore up while you're hunting, you just throw them in the creek and go on about your business? How many guns did y'all actually pull out of that creek? Were they all tested against that unspent round? Sorry, a truck flew by. I didn't expect that. So if you got a number of weapons from the creek, were they all tested? Because the case say that the person did even found down there, then decided, oh crap, I better get rid of this gun, and tossed it off into the Deer Creek.
Yeah, let's get through this video so I can get his mug, so I can take his mug off of our channel.
Right.
He's on trial right now. We don't have more time to test it.
And she said, look, it's at the discretion of the investigators. They basically tell her what to test. And she also testified that they were only looking for male DNA. And Jennifer Auger asked her, well, why? And Bozanovsky said, I had reason to believe based on the case history that this was a male perpetrator. So we only focused on men. Basically, we also found out some of the items taken from Richard Allen's home that they tested for DNA, for Richard Allen's DNA, his blue Carhartt jacket, that they took a swash of carpet from his car.
Those Google Pixel 3As are trash.
That they took during that search warrant.
His boots, those phones.
And of course that cartridge that was found at the scene between Abby and Liz. The jury coming out of this, the cross and the back and forth, they had 8 questions.
They did.
And technical ones, a lot about security too.
I wrote down some of those questions, and some of the questions from the jury just, to me, were mind-boggling.
Right.
One of the questions, what types of quality controls are utilized for DNA reagents? Another question they asked, how do you handle chimeras? Chimeras, I believe it's pronounced.
Right.
That's someone who would show DNA, having evidence of DNA in their body from more than one person. For example, like someone who might have a blood transfusion.
That's how they explained it.
There's at least one juror sending questions to the judge to ask the witness who really knows a lot about DNA. And that really surprised me, Scott. So the jury again today taking lots of notes, paying very close attention to the testimony, even though it was really dense and really technical testimony that we got this morning.
All right, Bob and Emily, thanks so much. We'll get back to you shortly. We want to bring in our.
All right. That does give me hope that justice will be served because of the thoughtful, attentive, and obviously knowledgeable jury that is hearing this case. Because if it was honestly, if it was a jury out of Carroll County, I highly, highly doubt that we would be getting jury questions like that.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like I said, they've had some pretty good questions all the way through this case, and they had some very good questions on this DNA.
I mean, Carroll County and Delphi are mostly agricultural communities. So, I mean, that's not to say they're not intelligent and they're not thoughtful and they wouldn't be attentive, but you just don't have as broad of a pool. I mean, say you did bring in, somebody from your jury pool in Carroll County that works for a doctor's office or works for a lab somewhere, 99 times out of 100, they're going to get dismissed from the jury because they have, some pressing matter that's going to prohibit them from, being sequestered for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't care. It does anymore. I mean, people are intelligent in this world. We're not all a bunch of dumbasses. We don't all have to go to big fancy colleges to be smart. This is common sense stuff that's coming out, common sense questions and very technical questions at the same time. And I'm glad they got a jury like this because you want open-minded people who can make good determinations based on what they're seeing and presented in court. So, I'm glad they got a jury pool and wherever they got them from, Allen County, but they're asking good questions and you want your jurors to ask good questions. That's like when they go into deliberations, because this is a different thing for like in Indiana, allowing these questions to come in like this. Usually they come in at the end when they're in deliberation, they'll send out questions and stuff. So you want your jury to have questions. And not just take for granted all that they're being told, even from both sides. There's bound to be some questions at some point. And if you aren't getting those, you don't have a good jury. That's why so much goes into picking your jury. That's why, both sides get to question these jurors and choose these jurors out, because you want to make sure you're getting the right people in there. And from what I've seen and heard, they're doing their job.
Yeah. So the other witness, which was a surprise to me that they had on yesterday, was Major Cicero from the LaPorte County Sheriff's Department, who is a crime scene reconstructionist. And he was actually called into the state's motion hearings on July 30, 31, and August 1. I heard him on August the 1st talking about the details of the crime scene, and I thought he was just called to be a rebuttal witness for the third party theories, to rebut Don Perlmutter's testimony. But he actually testified to details yesterday of that crime scene, and it sounds like he testified to a lot of the same things because there were a lot of people disturbed by what they heard in the courtroom. Obviously, I was on August 1st when I heard it. I heard new details that I hadn't heard before. So do we want to hear what WTHR recap of that one, of Cicero's testimony? All right.
That's fine. Yeah, it's I saw that he was brought back in to testify on the blood spatter.
Yeah. And in that scene in the woods, there was not a whole lot of quote what I would consider quote unquote splatter. There was a lot of different types of violence that went on. I mean, it wasn't like a scene in a house or an apartment where the violence takes place, and then you can check the floors and the walls. I mean, we're in the woods. We have a lot of natural organic elements. We have a lot of sticks and leaves and trees and branches and organic and dirt that's going to absorb those things. So spatter is really a loose word, I think, in this case, but it is what it is. All right. That's D8. Here we go.
Was really talking about where he thinks Abby and Libby were positioned at the times that they were attacked.
So a trigger warning here. We may hear some stuff that's brutal. I'm not sure how much WTHR censored themselves, so we may hear something that's disturbing. It was disturbing to me when I heard Cicero's testimony on August 1st. So if you got to step away, take a break, clear your mind.
By the murderer.
Yeah. Also, we want to talk about, he explained the process of examining this blood, how you put a chemical on it, and I couldn't pronounce it or spell it when he said it, but it turned the blood at the scene, especially on the tree, like a violet color, so that they could look at it better to try and explain what happened. And he called that upside down L stain. Interesting in detail. The margins were smooth, uniform, and even. So he took each young lady. First, he started with Libby and basically went through all of the blood on her body and what he thinks happened. He brought up the photos again of her, and that's when the jury became visibly upset, and a lot of folks became upset. He described her having, and we saw the picture, she had blood on the bottom of her right foot, and he said it was consistent with Miss German moving and basically walking in blood. Then he said that there was a huge amount of blood on her hands, and he basically said, and this was, I think, just a god-awful detail when he talked about basically, and he's seen this in other victims, that it is a normal reaction when you have a wound on your neck that you would grab your neck with both hands, and he thinks that Libby did that after one of the wounds that she received, that she put her hands on her neck. I think, though, the most difficult part of this was when he testified about the moisture that they found on Libby's face, and explaining that it hadn't rained the night before or during that day, and that the moisture was consistent with tears. And that's when you saw people break
With
that's
tears.
When,
and at that moment, I was able to see Libby's grandmother out of the corner of my eye, and she has really tried to be stoic throughout these proceedings, even when the photos were shown. But at that moment, she lowered her head, she put her head in her hands, and she started crying. And certainly understandably so, to hear that your granddaughter
was crying.
Last moments of her life,
she was crying.
Tears.
We also learned that Pat Cicero believes at one point Libby was sitting down. So and he talked about this, that there was at least the initial wound, then she is consistently moving, steps in blood. At one point he feels like she's seated, and that's where a majority of the blood flows out of her after she's moving a few feet, and then he believes that she passed there and then later was dragged to the tree. And he talked about believing that she was dragged based on the photos that he saw of the leaves that were stuck basically to her leg and her backside. When they turned her over, they saw a lot of leaves, even though the defense brought up, look, in the diagram of that crime scene, we don't see anything that indicates that investigators thought there was any kind of dragging at the scene. And so the defense brought that up. But nonetheless, Pat Cicero believes that someone dragged Libby over to the next tree. Then he moved on to Abby Williams. He talked about how the blood near Abby is very, very different. Only a small amount of pooling he described at her right arm and right shoulder. And he described no blood stains on the sleeves or her arms or her hands. And he said it was very unusual to not have blood on her hands. And we know when they found.
Just a real quick side note, you can hear the train in the background while they're trying to do this report.
Yeah.
And that's just so typical of small towns in Indiana. And it happened during court too. There were times in court during testimony where that train whistle would interfere with witnesses' testimony. And sometimes there were pauses, sometimes there weren't, so we couldn't hear what was going on. But the small towns in Indiana are often connected by railroad tracks. And
We have them all over the place here too. We got, I couldn't even tell you guys that we would fall asleep to the lullaby of a midnight train. It's not uncommon in small town America across the country. You know, and I guess big cities don't, they have lots of noise and cars and horns, but maybe no trains. It's to me, it's normal. It's normal.
Very normal. And it just feels kind of full circle to me, since this was, the Monon High Bridge was
Yep.
the old railroad trestle.
Yeah, it's kind of makes it surreal, right?
Very,
It's, yeah.
almost haunting.
Heard
Yeah,
that her
maybe
hands
it's
were tucked in.
somebody trying to speak to people.
Yes, it's the engineer telling people to get off the tracks in front of the train.
No, they're saying pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention, people.
Well, a lot of eyes are on
I'm
Delphi
talking about
right
the
now.
victims.
Yes.
I'm going by with the victims. Yeah, I mean
I know what you're saying.
they're probably screaming right now. Damn.
Okay, continuing
Inside
on.
the sleeves of Libby's sweatshirt, as if they have described it before, as if in a fighting position, like, kind of putting your dukes up, but nonetheless, no blood on her hands. And he described that as very unusual. He said that the blood went from the one wound in her neck over her chin and into her mouth. And he believed that she was wearing the sweatshirt that she was wearing, Libby's sweatshirt, when she was killed. And he based that on the amount of saturation in the sweatshirt. And Pat Cicero believes that Abby succumbed to her injuries right at the location that she was found. She was in a supine position, facing up. And this was another quote that was very hard to hear. There was no evidence to show that she died immediately.
Yeah.
So we know that it was not immediate, that these young women suffered. When he was asked about why no blood on her hands, he talked about the different possibilities. That one, she could have been bound, but there's no evidence of that. Right. He said. Two, that she could have been unconscious. And three, that she was restrained. But in his opinion, quote, she was wearing the sweatshirt at the time she was killed. He also testified it's possible at least one person could have committed this crime. But on the cross, the defense said to him, but is it possible that it could have been committed by more than one? And he said, I can't rule that out. I can't rule that out. So,
So some of the big takeaways that we heard from that is this blood spatter expert said that he believed that at least one of the girls' bodies was moved,
dragged, Libby's,
after she died.
Right.
He indicated that he believed, again, keep in mind, this all happened at what they refer to as ground zero. So about this 20-yard area in diameter. And he believes that there's one spot that has a fair amount of blood there. Right. That is where Libby was attacked.
Yes.
And then on the other side of that perimeter area is where she actually died.
Yes.
With
and even more blood.
With even way more blood at that particular
yes.
site, because he said that is where it appears that she would have died from her injuries.
Right.
And then her body was dragged.
Right.
And again, he believes that Abby Williams, she died in the spot where she was
injured,
attacked.
Yes.
And where she was injured.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Very interesting testimony that came from that expert.
The defense also, they were trying to argue, is it possible that Libby German could have been picked up by more than one person and not dragged? And Pat Cicero pretty much sticking to the idea that she was dragged. He said based on those leaves that were stuck to her leg, because he talked about blood, having an adhering quality, and that things stick to blood. So he talked about that. They also tried to talk about, they wanted to question him about the sticks that were left on the girls, saying, is it possible that they were not for concealment. And he basically talked about, well, it's pretty much whatever, it depends on your point of view, whether they conceal it or not. It depends on where you're looking at the crime scene, whether you think that those sticks conceal. But he could not rule out, the defense asked him about this, he could not rule out that someone had washed Abby Williams' hands or was holding her down when she was attacked. He could not rule that out when he was asked, by the defense.
And Scott, we should point out, again, one of the main reasons that this blood spatter expert was brought in, and during cross-examination, there was quite a bit of criticism on the part of the defense that this blood spatter expert was not brought in until
away.
7 years,
7 years
later. And it's an indication, as the state was preparing to present its case, there have been allegations, and one of the theories presented by the defense is that the blood mark on the tree that has Libby's blood on it was very intentional, and it was placed there as a sign by the killer that this was not an accidental mark on the tree. And we heard Mr. Cicero talk about that today.
Right. He talked about that he believes, he can't rule that out.
Wait, so he's allowed to talk about it, but the defense can't bring in outside witnesses to also talk about it? They just opened the door. They just opened the door.
And so now the defense will have to remove the jury from the courtroom. From what Andrea and lawyer Lee have stated about this, not bringing in third party, they are allowed to under certain circumstances, but it can't be done in front of the jury. So if it's established during testimony, then the defense can approach the judge.
Yeah,
say
they just opened
the damn door, and we're about to slam it now. So exactly. And they've been doing this, and they've been leading up to it, because if you believe that if he believes someone could have been holding her down, that's big, but that's a possibility. It can't be, that's his interpretation of what could have happened. Kind of like Miss Gun Expert over there, Miss Eyewitness Sarah Koba, we're full of interpretations in this trial, all circumstantial. Nothing can be proven. And so nothing yet has been proven. Nothing. But I'm right there with you. He opened the door for that. Now, if they're able to name certain names, probably not, but they can certainly bring up that we think there was more. And why have we not seen more of that 43-second video in this trial? Especially when the comments are coming that, is this the bridge guy's voice we're hearing on this phone? And this phone was pointing down toward the ground, but we hear these voices. There's still a lot of questions there with that particular piece of evidence that I feel like hasn't been explored enough. I don't know if it's going to get to come back up. It may be, at some point. But I'm with you. They opened the door for it, so bring it in. You got to discuss it at some point if you think that's a viable theory. It has to be discussed.
I can't believe that the defense team didn't jump on that.
Some of the things that they have or haven't done leave us all wondering, but I wonder if they're going to bring it up later. Like I said, I don't know what they're waiting for to bring it up. If they got something else planned to bring out other statements from other testimonies they're going to be, conducting later, I'm not sure. And even with a lot of the things that Holman said, they didn't hit hard enough back on some of that stuff, I feel like. But maybe they have a plan for that. I don't know. Maybe they think it's damaging enough for the jury to hear this. That puts reasonable doubt in the jury's mind from his testimony alone. Do you know what I'm saying? If I'm a juror and I got this blood spatter expert up there talking about this and saying he believes this could be, then I got to take that into account when I'm evaluating the evidence, especially in the deliberation room. Be like, I'm going to bring that up to my fellow jurors when we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, and Rosie and Baldwin know what they're doing, especially Baldwin. So I don't know if y'all remember, but from the trial session I went to last week on Thursday, Holman testified last, and he just testified in a limited basis.
Yeah,
because they knew, because they had a discussion about it ahead of time, because Baldwin said, "Hey, I have some questions for Lieutenant Holman, and I want to clear them with the court before we bring the jury in." And then McClellan said, "Well, today he's only going to testify about blah, blah, blah." And so Baldwin said, "Oh, okay, well, then we don't need to worry about it." But that's when Holman brought some of his bullshit to the stand. And,
Mhm.
and on cross, Baldwin did not press him as hard as I thought he should have. Like he
He
didn't
may
expose
bring
him.
him up as, yeah, he may get called back to the
He
witness
did.
stand.
He did that. Okay, so he did the
Well,
next day.
yeah,
So
he
Holman,
did, but yeah, he still could be even further down the road in this trial.
well, Holman did, or Baldwin did the mic drop the next day for Holman. All those questions that I thought he should have asked him on Thursday, he asked on Friday.
Yeah, and there was a lot of notes. I got a lot of notes from that particular testimony.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, while you're playing this, I did pull up the wishtv.com latest update as well. And
I did too. It's just a blog type of thing, right?
yeah, it is, but
Trial 10,
they're
Trial
putting
10 web blog.
today, day 10, and the things being said between Holman and Allen. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull that up now. Let's dive into
Okay.
that. Because we all know after Holman testified that he really upset Andrea Burkhart. Like, she's like, I can't believe this is the United States of America in 2024 that we're doing this to a suspect.
Yeah, I mean, and she's right. It's been the standard for years and years and years and years. And I actually had a whole thing. I've got a whole thing. I've been on the website when they bring up little things. My brain has to know more. It's just the way I am. Like the MVAC, yeah, that MVAC system was around in 2017. That's the system you use to try to pull DNA off of these types of evidence like bullets. And then you fast forward, and now we have the Bardol method is available. They could still try to pull DNA off of these items. For her to sit up there and try to tell us they can, it's too hard, it's too difficult. It's not that difficult, lady. There's actually things in place, and I can pull up the websites and tell you when they were developed, how they were developed, and why, and how they're used to collect DNA off these tiny objects, metal objects, and things of that nature. So she's feeding us a lot of bullshit along the way as well, not discrediting her education and all the things she might be able to do, but you're also being a little misleading. And Andrea brought misleading up in her live last night, and Holman not only, he lies to Allen over and over and over and over, trying to get him to confess during that interrogation in the October 26th interrogation. He has lied to that man over and over. It says that in the video, Holman tells Allen that his 6-hour matched the cartridge. And we know Allen laughs in apparent disbelief, and he says he doesn't need to read the ballistics report because he knows it's not his bullet because he didn't even have his gun that day.
Are you looking at the Day 10 blog?
Yeah.
Okay.
Holman, yeah.
Where are you at? Do you want to start at the top of that and work your way down, or do you want to? You can
It
cherry pick
starts at
stuff too.
well, what I'm reading started at 1:07 p.m. This is kind of after the
There we go.
morning,
All right.
yeah, after the morning
screen.
session. Yeah, that they came in and started doing their report here. And you'll see where he says that he tells him, it's Holman tells Allen that the 6-hour matched the cartridge from the crime scene. That's when Allen laughs in disbelief. Holman tells him, I'm on your side. And then he asks Allen about the statement, it's over statement that he made during the first interview at their, on October 13th. And, Allen reiterates, well, I said that because the damage is done. You guys have done all these things to me and questioned everybody I know. Then Holman tells Allen the media will portray him in a certain way. Koberger case right there. And are you the mastermind? And Allen responds, mastermind? Okay. He asks Holman if he realizes what he's going through, telling him he has anxiety and all kinds of stress. Allen adds, there is no way around from my gun was anywhere near those girls or the bridge. He continues, go ahead and do what you're going to do. Anybody who knows me knows I could never, ever do this, even if I wanted to do it. It's not me. Holman tells Alan that the science doesn't lie and that the death penalty is on the line. And Alan says he doesn't care. In the video, Holman tells Alan he has the latest, or he has the last, sorry. Holman told Alan he was the last one to contact the girls. Alan denies the claim, saying he didn't even know them. So you're telling this man that he was the last one to contact them. So say legit, he isn't the last one, but and he knows that because he never contacted them. And you're saying, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. We can prove it. Excuse me, you better start proving it. So is that gonna, they haven't been able to prove that. They're saying there was no connection and no communication. So he was lying to Alan there, trying to tell him, we know you were the last one to talk to these girls. Where's that proof at, Holman? So that was obviously a lie, because you don't have proof he was the last one to speak to the girls. We do know that Keegan Klein spoke to the girls, one of the last people to do that, but not Rick Allen. So yeah, that's where I'm at, Job. I was reading.
Yeah,
And then,
and we're there. We can see it on the screen. But so
okay.
here's a point that Andrea made, and I watched her. I think I had to watch some of it on replay, but I watched most of what she had to say, and she makes a really good point. In most countries, in most developed countries, it's not permissible for the police to lie to a suspect in interrogation. That's not allowed in Great Britain, and I think she might have mentioned a couple of other countries, but it's just not permissible. But the United States Supreme Court allows it. They allow you to lie to suspects, and I don't get that. It's putting the conviction before the rights of the defendant. Like absolutely 100%. It's saying the ends justify the means.
Yeah. And I get what they're trying to do, but it doesn't work. And especially if you have a person who is innocent or proclaiming their innocence, and you're just sitting there going at them, in that way, and using your lies, thinking you're going to get a confession right then and right there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't get it either. Why that's still allowed. I mean, have all your questions and do all you need to do to get the questions out, but dang, it doesn't make sense to continue to lie to the man over and over and over. Because you're going to get an argument out of him each and every time, especially if you didn't do something, or if you're in total deniement, you're going to say I didn't. You're still going at this person incredibly hard, trying to force something that's not there, which is going to be stressful and intimidating. Like she said in her live, are you going to get up and walk past the cop and out the door and down the halls and out through the secured area and just leave? Especially when you were told, hey, come down here and pick up your vehicle. And then you get there. Oh, we just want to ask a couple questions. Okay, cool. And you go with them into their little interrogation room. Now do you feel like you have the right to get up and leave? Like she stressed to you guys listening, get an attorney. Stop answering the questions. Don't say another word. You got that right to do that. It's not illegal to do that. They can't come back in court at trial and say, well, you wouldn't answer our questions. You lawyered up. And you hear that all the time. Oh, they lawyered up. They lawyered up. Well, you damn right they lawyered up. You're supposed to do that. If you come knock on my door wanting questions, I'm going to be like, hold on. I got to go find me a lawyer real quick.
So here's the one time, though, that I think it didn't necessarily backfire on the person in the interrogation, on the suspect, because the jury is hearing him live on the video, which is state's evidence, which the state knows that they have to present it to, quote unquote, get ahead of it, because if they don't, the defense will. He denies it multiple times, like somewhere between 20 and 25 times the jury is hearing him deny it. So, I mean,
yeah, and it's not uncommon for a lot of criminals to deny. But at some point, you got to shut it down, and you either make your arrest or you let the person go. And it took them a long time to get to that. You're under arrest. We're putting you in handcuffs now. You know, once they couldn't get what they wanted out of him by using their lies and their read techniques on him, it wasn't working. You know, it just wasn't working at this point, and it's not going to work even with. Here's the thing about really smart criminals that are true psychopaths. This has nothing to do with Richard Allen. They know how to manipulate the game and the system, and they know you're going to come in with this kind of questioning. But that's not what I'm seeing here. I don't see, you know, you would see an arrogance and, yeah, he's getting mad and saying, well, do what you got to do then. Oh, of course, I'm going to say that at some point too. You're screaming at me and you're yelling at me and you're cussing at me and telling me I did it. Well, you know what? Then arrest me and prove it. What are you going to do once you arrest them? You're going to throw them in prison and have them guarded by fishy people and all these things. You know, it's just a hot mess. But you have to look at each case individually, each interrogation individually, you know, as to what's happening. They're not always right. And these methods shouldn't be used. How long did that interrogation even go? Do you know? It was well over an hour. I don't know the exact
I think it was
length
an hour
of
and a
it.
half, if I remember right. I think that
I
one on
couldn't
the
remember.
13th was an hour
Yeah,
and
I
a half.
couldn't remember if the 13th was allegedly about an hour and a half, but I don't know how long the one on the 26th actually was.
Yeah, a
Was
couple.
it
I think
about
that one was a couple of hours, if I remember right.
right? So if you sit there for that long, even when down to them offering the smoke breaks, and they're if you watch enough true crime, you know these are the techniques they're using. Right. And we're going to be friendly to you and we're going to give you your smoke break. And then some points then you see the good cop, bad cop stuff come into play. Then the bad cop's like, oh, we're not going to give you any more breaks. We know you did it and all these things. Then you got the other cop, you know what? Let's just let him have a cigarette break.
I think Holman has split personality disorder because he was both good cop and bad cop.
He was playing both. He was
Yes,
playing
he
both
was.
sides of that coin.
And it didn't work. It didn't work, buddy.
No, it didn't.
He said,
It
I'm on
didn't.
your side. I'm the only friend you've got. I know you did it. Are you the mastermind? That's a question. That's a question that raises my eyebrows a little bit. Are you the mastermind?
Are you the mastermind?
The mastermind of
Meaning
what? So
the-
they still
Mhm.
think the day they arrested him, they still think there are more people involved.
Exactly. That's my take on that, Joe. Exactly, because if you are the mastermind, what did I mastermind and orchestrate here? That you wouldn't use that term if you're looking at just one individual. You're the crazy person that did this, something along those lines. But this is like this. That was an odd statement to say, and I think you're right. That alludes to
Well,
more than one person.
yeah, it doesn't just insinuate that it was more than one person. It insinuates that there was a plan, that they believe there was a plan
Yes.
to kidnap and murder. Maybe not Abby and Libby, maybe Abby and Libby, but somebody out on the trails that day, it was planned. It wasn't like a spur of the moment, hey, I couldn't control my fantasies or whatever, so I
Right.
kidnapped him and then I got interrupted by Brad Weber's truck and then I just had to kill him without doing my thing. I mean,
But I
that's
had to
just
take the time to redress one of my victims first.
the term mastermind does not ring true with that spontaneous spur of the moment type of violent crime. That just mastermind. Nobody masterminds a spontaneous spur of the moment thing. It's planned
No.
out. They believed it was planned out. They believed it was executed by multiple people to the day that they arrested him.
And they still believe that after he was arrested, because they would come out and make those sorts of statements.
And they still
You
left
know,
up the sketch of young bridge guy was still up on the FBI.
yeah.
I think may still be up on the FBI website.
Yeah, it was a couple days ago. So up until recently, they decided he's the only person. Because I think during these so-called confessions, he never brings up another person. And were they trying to, now you have to wonder, were they trying so hard to break him during this interview to force a confession of some sort? And they didn't get it. So now we're going to try to get it once he's in prison. Why did you need a confession so bad? Every case is going to want a confession, but they're not going to get it. So why in this case did y'all seem to try so hard to get one? Because you know your evidence is purely circumstantial. And the only thing you got so far is he was there, but the man himself told you he was there. And then I had to question myself and my own theories. If Richard Allen was the guy walking on the bridge that day, but he was so far behind the girls, he didn't think twice about it. Richard Allen never said he saw two girls on the bridge way at the end. He just says he saw the three girls. So that's a big thing I wonder about, because he does look a little similar to the bridge guy, and claimed he was wearing similarly to what the bridge guy was wearing, but we also know an alternate suspect could also pass for bridge guy. So I'm not convinced the actual bridge guy is Allen. But if it was, and he was just strolling along, and those girls were way, way away from him, and he happened to be in the video that Libby was shooting of Abby, happened to show up back there. We don't even know if the girls were talking to him, that particular man in the video, when they were talking about going down the hill. You know, I've heard it was a casual conversation the girls were having. Then I heard that it wasn't so casual. This is what's part of what's aggravating about not being able to witness this trial yourself, because you got the different accounts. And then when they each come out at the end of the day and bring you their accounts, they're doing a really good job. And I'm talking about Andrea, Lawyerly, Hidden True Crime, and Defense Diaries. They're bringing it. But it's hard to go review all four of them in a timely fashion to put your notes together to see what each one says about particular things. And they all drawing the same conclusion. That's the things I'm looking for. Because if you go by these media reports, you're getting bits and pieces they think's important to you. You know, and so and it's just a little bit of a headache sometimes. I wish they would release transcripts, you know, or at least an audio at the end of the day, like in the Vallow trial, because there were no cameras for Lori Vallow's trial. But at the end of every single day, we got the audio. And that's what how they were reviewing her trial, was at night, because we had the audio to do it, you know.
Nope. Per Judge Scholl's ruling on Andrea Burkhart's motion for access to those, people who are not a party to the trial itself are not subject to that privilege of reviewing the court audio.
Yeah, to have interveners file is not an unusual thing. There's multiple filings like that in the Idaho 4 case. Multiple filings like that. There's a gag order in that case. And people want to know, we want that gag order lifted. They want all the details right now, right here, right now, you know. But so filing and what she filed I'm glad she did it, because someone needed to do it. But there's multiple filings like that in the Idaho 4 case, and they're going to get denied 9 times out of 10. But Koberger's case, we get to watch the hearings for ourselves. We're going to get to watch that trial. You know, and Lori and Chad Daybell, Lori didn't want cameras, but damn it, we got that audio. Chad Daybell's like, bring in the cameras. We got cameras. This not allowing either or is ridiculous. And I think that was part of her ultimate plan, because she knows that the mainstream media is going to put out the immediate details that suit their fancy. And I think this true crime world bothered her the way it bothered Judge Diener. When I got to recuse quickly. This is dangerous. I got, streamers coming at me. Shit, dude, the dude just got arrested. How hard did they come at you within a matter of a couple of days? Couldn't have been that hard. Everybody was just learning about the arrest and looking into it. And because they requested some information, you got scared and ran away. Oh, I got to leave the case. I'm scared. That made no sense. That began the ball on the suspicion in this case, in my opinion. The minute that judge came out and said, I want to recuse myself, I'm going to send Alan to to the prison, and I'm out of here. Y'all are crazy and I'm scared. Why? Because you got to ask a few questions. Shit, I asked one question yesterday, and he wanted to block me off his channel. But don't get mad when somebody just has some questions. Why are you fighting so hard to keep these questions out of there? You know, that's what raises the level of suspicion. That is what has elevated the suspicion level in the Idaho 4 case. People don't understand the gag order. And now, because it's gagged, there's things to hide. Actually, it's to protect the integrity, because if it was all out there, we would be sitting here ripping that evidence to shreds, going through it. You know, that's what we do. So I think a lot of what is happening, they brought upon themselves in this case. They made themselves look shady.
Yeah. Do you want to keep reading on down that the Wish TV's?
So Alan tells him, you know, this is causing me anxiety and stress. And Alan adds, there's no way around from my gun was anywhere near those girls or the bridge. He continues, go ahead and do what you're going to do to me. Anybody who knows me knows I could never even do this, even if I wanted to. Now, that's not an abnormal statement to me. I mean, I can say, I wish I could be the one that could do something like that. But that's not me. So that's not a red flag statement to me, in my personal opinion. Holman tells Alan the science doesn't lie and that the death penalty is on the line, and Alan said he didn't care. Holman tells Alan, you know, he was the last one, we just read that a minute ago, to contact the girls. And Alan denies the claim, saying he didn't even know them. And then Rick Allen says, go ahead and kill me. You'll make my wife rich. Meaning, I didn't do it. Send me to prison, put me to death, and my wife can sue. You know, I get that statement as well. Do you?
Yes. Yeah, I read it the same way.
Yeah. At this point in the video, Holman leaves the room. Alan remains seated and looks around. So the reporter says crime scene photos were on the table, but Alan did not look at them after Holman left the room. Oh, you shake. So Holman's going to leave the crime scene photos out there on the table for Rick Allen to look at, hoping he'll grow a conscience suddenly, or break down, or show a reaction, or smile, going, look at my work, like a sadistic serial killer would do. And Alan doesn't even look at them. I don't blame him. Who wants to see that? You know what I mean? Those are hard images to look at. So Holman comes back with a man who swabs Alan's mouth and lips for DNA. Alan did not object to being swabbed. The man taking the DNA sample leaves the room. Ball's in your court, Holman tells Alan when they're alone. Holman says they have more evidence from the bullet. He says Alan is a bridge guy, and there are 5 witnesses saying he was there. Did we see 5 witnesses in court come out and say that? We saw 3, and they didn't say that they saw Alan. They saw man. Okay. As he noted in the testimony that he was lying. Okay. So, of course, he was lying to him there, but still. Alan says, I'm not telling you I did something I didn't fucking do. Something I didn't fucking do. There's nothing you have to implicate me because I wasn't out there. Holman says your conscience is trying to tell you to get out in front of this. Now, how does he got oh Lord, he's got magic hand and he got magic eyes and can see into Alan's brain. Alan says, if you're going to arrest me, arrest me. I'm done talking. Nothing you have is going to show me anywhere near the murder of those little girls. Right there, they should have called it a day, but they didn't. Holman leaves the room. He returns and tells Alan the witnesses saw him with a gun on February 13th. Wow. I told you I was on the trail. I didn't tell you I was at the murder scene, Alan responds. I'm not going to tell you something that I didn't happen so you can feel better about this. Absolutely. No, that's the response I would have given him. You know, you're lying and saying that people saw him with a gun. So you're just going to whip out your gun and walk around with it and expose it to the world while you're getting ready to go commit a couple of murders. No, you're not. You're going to keep it concealed the entire time. Wow. In the video, Alan says his wife will tell police he would never do this. In the courtroom, Alan's wife, Kathy, nods her head in agreement, I'm assuming. The the very day the police asked for people to come forward about being out there, I did, Allen tells Holman in the interview. See, this kind of case is going to make people not want to say things. You know, certain things happen in certain communities, nobody talks. There's reasons why. It's not just to hide or cover for the person who did it, it's because they don't want to get involved because this kind of stuff right here. Allen continues to say that Holman is trying to trick him. Holman again leaves the room. Allen appears emotional and shakes his head. When he returns to the room, Holman says Allen's depression has gotten worse since the murders. Now, how does Holman know that? Allen says, if I murdered...
He's doing the read technique. He's totally doing a sloppy ass read technique is what he's doing.
Very sloppy, right? He didn't remember his training very well, even if it was crappy. The whole read thing is crappy. Holman didn't do a good job at.
Well, he doesn't even know good cop and bad cop should be two different people.
Right? I knew. Oh, that required two people, dude, not just one.
He's like, oh shit! I've been reading this script as one person.
Right? I'd be like, dude, are you okay, Holman? And I think it was awesome when the defense, when Holman was trying to say that, looking down is a sign of lying. And then the defense gets up there and says, well, you were looking down during most of your testimony. I was like, oh, hell, that's a good, that was good. The jury needed to hear that. Yep. So if I murdered two girls, I'd have depression too, Holman says. Allen replies, I did not murder the two little girls. Holman asks Allen about his gun. Allen replies and says he carries his gun only when he goes night fishing or mushroom hunting. So, Joe, is mushroom hunting a thing in Indiana? It's not here in my part of Florida. We don't know about it.
It is for a very, very, very short window of opportunity, like 2, 3, 4 weeks in the springtime when the ground is moist from the melted snow and the sun comes out. So like April-ish, it can roll into May. If it's a really warm winter, sometimes they can start popping up in March, but usually it's like mid-April to the first week or so of May. When
So going night fishing is not a huge deal. We do it all the time here in Northwest Florida. You can find us on the river at night, any given night during fishing season. It's just the way it is. So that's not even unusual to me either. And you would want your gun with you because you might, right here in Florida, you might run up on a gator or a snake, a water moccasin, whatever. Not like you're out there scared of people, but it's the wildlife you might have to protect yourself from at some point. But you're usually in a boat here. In the video, or if you're on the bridge doing salt water, in the video, Holman says, I can't present this evidence to a jury of your peers before leaving again. What? Hang on, I think I skipped a piece. Holman asks about his gun. Allen replies and says he carries the gun when he goes night fishing or mushroom hunting. At this point, Holman, who has returned to the witness stand, tells the court he isn't lying to Allen, but that he told him several lies as a tactic. That's the same as lying. You did. Holman, are you okay? Because that is lying. Whether it was a tactic or not, you still lied. So you said he tells the court he isn't lying to Allen, but that he told him several lies. So
who were you? Okay, who were you lying to if you weren't lying to Allen? Were you lying to the video camera? Were you lying to the jury?
I wasn't lying to Allen, but I did tell him several lies. Well, then you lied to him. Make that make sense. Okay. In the video, Holman says, I can't present this evidence to a jury of your peers before leaving again. Of you damn right you can't, because you got none. That's an odd statement to make, right? I can't present this evidence to a jury of your peers. What is he talking about?
That makes no sense.
No. Holman returns a short time later, tells Allen his wife Kathy wants to talk to him, and he goes to get her. What kind of good person kills two people? Allen says. Remember that Holman says, I think you're a good person. You and your wife are good people. And then that's when Allen replied, well, what kind of a good person would kill little girls, or anybody for that matter? Russell says, oh, that's the damn reporter. At this point in the interview, Allen had not been read his rights. Okay, so on Saturday, Holman testified that reading the Miranda rights was not recorded. And that was another thing, and we haven't went live since then. But yeah, there's another part of the missing stuff, kind of like an hour of Sarah Carball's missing interview, and there's a lot of missing parts in this damn investigation that lead a lot of questions still. Okay, so in the video, Kathy enters the room and hugs her husband. It's going to be all right, Allen tells his wife. He tells her that he can't believe she thinks he committed the murders. What? He tells her that he can't believe she thinks he committed the murders. You know me. You know this isn't something I could do. I'm not going to sit here and convince you. I know you know I didn't do this. Kathy Allen asked her husband how the bullet from his guns. They're working her in the
Shit.
other room.
Yes.
They're working
Holman's
her in
lying
the
to her
other room.
too. Ah.
You damn right they were. Oh my God, that poor dude. Joe, you start reading. I'll get some coffee.
Do you
Oh
need
my
some coffee?
God, that's okay. I'm out the gate, not a conspiracy theorist, and I always want to believe the lawman got the right guy. But damn it, man, you're trying to convince this poor woman, knowing you're flat out lying to her, telling her you've got damaging, convincing evidence to prove her husband did it. Wow,
Oy vey.
wow. So I guess at that point they must have mentioned to Allen that she thought he did it or something. Kathy Allen asked her husband how the bullet from his gun ended up at the crime scene, adding, "They are going to come after you, and I don't know how to answer that." Richard Allen tries to comfort his wife, telling her that nobody is in trouble and that he loves her. They aren't going to get away with this, Allen says. At this point, Richard Allen looked back at his wife in the courtroom and he winked at her.
Whoa.
Kathy Allen says again in the video that she can't understand where the bullet came from. They've done convinced her that's his bullet, trying to get her to confess to her husband being a weirdo or something. It's one thing to go at your suspect the way you're doing, but to single out and isolate their spouse, because but you don't have to testify against your spouse in this country. Wow, I wish one of them had had enough of something in them to say, we're shutting this shit down. We're getting an attorney right here, right now, before he got handcuffed. But I guess they thought, it's hard when you've never been through something like that before in your life. You don't know really what to say or do or expect. So I'm not blaming them for not shutting it down. They were being bullied big time. So she can't understand where that bullet came from. Richard Allen tells his wife to say she wants an attorney. There you go, Rick. And then they will let him leave. The video cuts. Now, we have heard they did take out parts of this video for random reasons, and we're assuming it didn't pertain to the case. I didn't know if it had conversations about their daughter, private life kind of thing, or what. I don't know why they did that. So he tells the wife to get an attorney, and they will let him leave. Then the video cuts to Holman back in the interview room with Richard and Kathy. Richard asks Holman to let Kathy leave, and the two hug, and she prepares to leave. Holman tells Kathy to tell her husband to do the right thing as she leaves the room. A lot of men would have said, talk to my wife one more time, dude, and we're going to need more than,
Yep. Well,
we're going to
yep.
need a whole bunch of attorneys here in just about 5 minutes. Oh, wow. Holman exits the room and returns a short time later. You're going to pay for what you're doing with my wife, Allen tells him.
Yeah.
In
So
the
there it
video,
is. That's
go
what
ahead.
you just said. That's what you just said. Like a lot of men would have been like, talk to my wife one more time like that. But Rick Allen's like 5'4" to 5'6", depending on what you believe. I mean, and if you believe that he wanted to change a fishing license so police wouldn't be on to him about the murders, okay, that's another topic. And Holman's a big dude. Like, he's not just like tall, much taller. I mean, I interacted with him a few times in the courtroom. He acted all polite, holding the door for the public coming in and like checking to see if there were more seats that we could sit in. I mean, he was the consummate politician in the courtroom, nice and polite and smiling, but he's a big dude. Like if I were at Rick Allen's height, I would be physically intimidated being in the same room with him 100%. And I probably would not make a physical threat.
Well,
Anyway.
I mean, a lot of the guys I know around these parts, it ain't just Indiana that's rural, people. Northwest Florida is as rural as you get. That's the only part of Florida that is rural, and we don't play that shit. You don't talk to the wives like that, the children. You don't speak to them that way. But you're very intimidated now because you're in the jail, right? In there in that little interrogation room. So I don't, but still, some people I know probably would have got up and tried to pop the man. But some would have been like, let me. I need to know better. Yeah, there's times I have to control myself because I'd be like done things I shouldn't have done. So you're going to pay for what you're doing with my wife. In the video, Holman screams at Alan. Arrest me, Alan tells Holman. Happy to. You're fucking guilty and I'm going to prove it.
I'm going to prove it? Hold on. I'm going to prove it.
Gonna prove it. Get busy proving it, Mr. Lawman. You better get busy. You done admitted you've been lying on that stand.
5.5 years after the crime was committed, he's admitting that he still hasn't proven it.
Yeah.
He's
How are you going to prove
admitting
it?
they still don't have the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt.
Nope. How are you going to prove that now? That's what I be saying. How you proving that? You're telling me you got me all these experts. So all these years, y'all had experts knowing who I am on that video, knowing that's my voice. You just found your tip a few days ago that led to me. And all of a sudden, you get all these experts that already know, oh, that's me. That's my bullet. That's me on the video, me in the audio. Boy, y'all have got to work fast, Holman, and got it all figured out. No wonder Doug Carter's in hiding. He's like, oh, shit. Truth's about to come out. Wow. The video ends just after 12:45 p.m. Court is adjourned for break. God dang it. So I'm going to let you read for a minute because I got to get a cup of coffee and walk outside to have a damn cigarette. I'm sorry. I got to soak this shit in.
All right. Okay, so we're kind of going backwards here because
Yeah,
this is like
I realize that
reverse
now.
chronological order.
DB got me excited with some updates, so I was just following his lead. I'm gonna blame him.
Yeah, so let's start all the way down at the bottom and go upwards in chronological order. So 8 a.m.
Sorry, guys, I was kind of hot mess on that one. You take it away, Joe.
You are unduly forgiven without prejudice.
Thank you. We're fair here in our deliberation room.
The line to get in the Carroll County Courthouse on day 10 of the Delphi merger started forming at 5:30 Monday night. That's freaking insane. The number of people out inside the courtroom is limited. It's limited to 24, although when I was there Thursday, they were letting a handful more in there as the reserve seats did not get taken up by the families and the defense team and all that. So, wow. 5:30, there's already, I'm counting about 12 people in there. So that's half of the allotted public seats are taken up like 24, 27, 28 hours before court is scheduled. No, that's PM. So 12 plus 3. I'll get it right. 15, 16 hours before. All right. Brief summary of day 9 in the Delphi murders trial. We already talked about the DNA expert and then Pat Cicero. We went over those. So we'll scroll up more. 9 o'clock court begins for the Tuesday session. All rise. The judge enters. The judge asks the attorneys if they're ready to bring the jury in, and 9 times out of 10, they're ready to bring the jury in. So we all sit there for 5 minutes because the jury is back on the other side of the courthouse. So they have to come all the way through the rotunda on the 3rd floor and all the way around behind by the judge's chambers and then come out through the door. So it's usually like a 3 to 4 minute process. Then everybody all rise again. seated for the jury, and then the state calls somebody. So let's see who the state called first. And the morning session on today's morning session, 10:57 a.m. Court began at 9:02. So mid-morning break is usually around 10:30. It looks like it was a little later today. Court began at,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Lauren, Hidden True Crime did a lunch live, but it was like a very short, brief thing. And I thought she said that no witnesses had been called during this morning, except for they were just playing these videos. So I don't know.
Yes, so there we go. The court began at 9:00. Rick Allen is wearing a light purple button-down shirt with khaki pants. I think I may have seen him in that and one on last Thursday when I was there. She reports he seems to have lost even more weight. Would not be surprised. The state enters into video interviews. 9:14, the jury enters the courtroom. Okay, so they did have a discussion about the videos before they let the jury back in. So that's an unusually long time to have 12 minutes between the judge calling the court to order and then bringing the jury in. So they must have had some kind of discussion about those videos. The judge tells it, what? This okay, something's out of order here, because she on the second line it says the state enters the evidence and the judge tells the jury that parts are redacted as they do not pertain to the investigation. And then the jury enters the courtroom. No, the jury doesn't enter the courtroom after Judge Gull instructs them. So anyway, state plays the October 13th video first. Mullen and Liggett explain the video. In the video, Mullen reads to Allen. So Mullen is in the first interview on October 13th of 2022.
Yes. Yeah, Liggett and Mullen apparently are on the October 13th, and then you have Holman on the other video, the interrogation
the 22nd,
video.
yes, October 22nd.
Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody in chat. I've been reading, so I was just looking at your comments there. And welcome in, and thanks for coming in.
Hey, there we go. All right, so what they learned from Dolan's interview on February. They talk about Dolan's interview from February 2017. That was on February 18th of 2017 when they met in the Save-A-Lot parking lot on the southwest end of Delphi. Mullen asks Allen if he uses Facebook, and Allen says, "My wife does, I don't." We have some pictures from those from that Facebook page before it was taken down.
Yeah.
Allen says in the video he's married, has a daughter born in 94. There's actually a picture of her taken on the Monon High Bridge that was for like school pictures of some kind.
Wait, the picture of their daughter sitting on the bridge?
Yes.
That was taken after the murders of Libby and Abby.
Was it really?
Yeah. And it allegedly was taken by Kathy Allen and posted to her Facebook. But,
okay.
Yeah. I don't know what that's about, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know either. That is interesting.
I've got that. Yeah, well, that picture's been out for, circulating for a long time. And a lot of us.
I've had it since 20 whatever, like
yeah,
a long time. Honestly, I thought I had it in 2017 because I looked back on it. It actually appeared in my timeline for some reason. And I resaved it so I'd be able to bookmark it, but I'm hesitant to share it on here just because she has nothing to do with this, and
she really doesn't. And like I said, that picture has been out there. A lot of us who have followed the case since the beginning have seen it. So I'm with you. I don't care to put those out there like that, especially her. She's whether he did it or not. It's nothing to do with his daughter, Yep.
All right. So in the video, so they're doing the read technique again. They're establishing rapport. Tell me about yourself. Where did you go to high school? When did you graduate? What did you do after high school? That's classic read technique.
Yes.
Trying to establish rapport with the suspect.
Trying to, you're let's connect with each other, right? Tell me about you. I'll tell you about me. We're going to be buddies. And then you'll feel comfortable telling me everything I'm asking you about.
Yeah, it says so Jancy says that picture was before the murders, and I honestly believe it was too.
And that's the thing. It's been out there both presented both ways. I don't have. Yeah, we can't get back into like to see. Sleuthy actually would know probably too, but I really don't know. It has been reported that it was after the murders, and then some say it was before. So
I think it was before, just because I also have it with pictures of him and Kathy out on a trail somewhere. It wasn't Monon
yeah,
High Bridge Trails; it was another trail. But
no,
I have Facebook pictures of them from the exact same time.
yeah, all that's out there too. So Kathy and Rick both got outdoors, and so it was not unusual for this man to go out to the trails and walk around. It was something they did. Like, people around here where I live, we get out. We are all are outside. Not everybody loves it, but a lot of you do. So yeah, I've got those same photos, and they are, so you can Google them. They're out there.
Yeah. Hold on one second.
Now, if he was the kind of inside guy that didn't partake in fishing and nature hikes, and all of a sudden randomly he's out there doing just that, that's a little odd. But it's not odd for him to be doing it because it was something they did all the time.
Right, and they discovered that when they confiscated the family album that was in the quote unquote office or second bedroom or whatever you want to call it of their home when they executed the search warrant. I mean, they found that,
Mhm. Yeah.
and they found several pictures of them at the Monon High Bridge trails. But I would imagine it was probably full of pictures of them in the outdoors in lots of places.
Kelt, I see that comment, the Tennessee or Kentucky. Yeah, it was taken. The ones of Rick and Kathy weren't taken at the bridge. They were taken while they were out on vacation. Yeah, the picture's not relevant. That's why Joe's saying he's not going to put it out. Wouldn't put it up right now because it's really, like, it doesn't matter to me. Either way, that the daughter had nothing to do with it. So the picture alone doesn't establish any more guilt than what Holman's sitting here telling him all these lies that we got all this proof already that you did it. Hey, Kelt.
All right, so let's keep reading down. Got to tab back over. I almost went down a rabbit hole, and I can't do that when I'm on a live.
No, good Lord, we do that enough off this.
No rabbit holes today. No rabbit holes this afternoon.
Okay.
So they're
If
establishing the
if you
report,
see me jump, pull me out.
right? If there's a white rabbit with a wearing a vest with a watch in front of me, then stop me before I follow him.
For real.
Alan says he graduated high school in 91, attended and studied accounting at Ivy Tech before joining the military, played football in high school for a year. This is all rapport building stuff. Was in the National Guard, that he lived in Mexico, Indiana, which we know that Mexico and Peru, Indiana are right next to each other. They're literally like 5 minutes apart. Does not consistently go to church. Oh no, he's guilty. He's got to be guilty. You got to go to church every Sunday.
Well,
If
my sister does, and I do not. And I got it. Okay, I'm not even gonna comment.
I was trolling a little bit there. I was like, I was
Mhm.
putting that bait out there.
Yeah, you don't gotta sit on a pew to have a relationship or a walk, if that's what you believe.
Right. There's a
And
difference between being religious and being spiritual.
very much so. Thank you.
Alan had a heart attack in 2010 at the age of 37. That is young.
That is
That-
young, and yeah.
And
It's a wonder
he
he didn't have another one when Holman was lying to him.
not just lying to him, but standing up and screaming in his face.
And isolating his wife and telling her the same bull you're telling him with all with your pack of lies, trying to convince that poor woman and break her. And imagine you're telling the truth and they're sitting there going at you like that. They've done it to so many suspects, and there's people that are questioned in all kinds of crimes that are ruled out eventually. because you happen to be near or whatever, and you may have known the person, whatever. But that's they were really going at them hard with lies, and that's so bad, so bad.
And I mean, I don't know what we do to change that. I think Andrea kind of mentioned last night that there are some legislatures around the country that are kind of looking at that and starting to pass some legislation.
Yeah, she was. I made a couple of notes about that to look up those particular things she had talked about, but I haven't done it yet because those are the kind of rabbit holes I jump in. I'll hear
Right.
something like, let me write that down. So I need to research that now, But trying to keep up with the testimony alone in this case has been a rabbit hole in itself, hasn't it?
It has. And even when you're there in person at the trial and you have the back and forth between the attorney and the witness, whether it's direct examination from McClelland or on cross from Baldwin or Rosie or OJ, you get caught up in those moments. And it was so funny when I saw Bob's live from the same day that I was there last Thursday, and he was like, I was just so caught up in this cross-examination by Baldwin of Holman that he stopped taking notes. And I did the exact same thing. Like, there's a hole in my notes right there because I was just so caught up in that back and forth between the two of them. And
yeah. Could you imagine being one of these three defense attorneys in there, Mata and Andrea and Lawyer Lee, and not feeling the urge to jump up and holler, I object? They're going to look at you like, you're excuse me? Well, oops, my bad. I forgot. I'm not in charge here. It's not my case, but it's got to be frustrating. They probably want to jump up and scream that at some point. Wait a minute. I object. It'd be hard. It would be hard.
Yeah. Well, Andrea did her best to do it in the format that she can by filing that motion. And
Kel, Kel, I wonder that because, once you get those stents in, you do probably have to take, you're probably on a beta blocker for the rest of your life. There's certain things. I wonder, because the defense they got the records, or they were having to really try hard to get the records at one point of his treatment plan while he was in the prison, and what meds he was being given and not given. And I wonder if his heart meds were being administered properly. If they don't want a lawsuit, they would have made sure. Because if they were giving him things they didn't want reported, and that would have been done off the record. But you would think they would still comply and give your regular routine meds. They're supposed to.
Right. Okay. So after the heart attack statement, Rick Allen tells investigators, so Mullen and Liggett. So this is in 2022. So Liggett is the sheriff. Liggett is the sheriff now.
Yeah.
No. He's running for sheriff. He's still running for sheriff. Yes.
Yeah.
So 2022 was an election year, and he was running for sheriff. And Tobe Lesenby couldn't run again because of term limits in Indiana. I think a sheriff can only do 2 consecutive terms.
Yes.
So he handpicked Tony Liggett. There was actually a primary runoff, and the person that ran against Liggett felt like he had been done wrong by Lesenby, by demoted. He had been basically demoted from what he was before the primary loss to Liggett.
Right. And didn't he file a lawsuit?
He did, and it was I think it was eventually dismissed, or he eventually withdrew it. I'm not sure what the status of it is now, but
and just real quick, there was a document that was brought down. So apparently Mitch Westerman, who is the person who went into Baldwin's office and took the crime scene photos and leaked them to YouTube creators, they're dismissing his case. Just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
So I heard a rumor, and you can either confirm or deny this because I'm sure you have more information on it, but the person that reshared those, that unalived himself.
Yes.
Was he also interrogated by Holman and told how horrible his life would be because of this thing that he
Yeah.
had done.
Yes. So after that alleged interrogation, I saw that as well. I mean, I've known about him for a long time. There's 3 players involved in that, and the middleman did unalive himself, but that apparently came after an interrogation by Holman, who threatened to ruin his life. And the guy was in the military and had a family, and I guess it was too much to bear.
So sad. And
It really is.
to hear
And
that Holman was involved in the investigation of that leak, though, and that Holman
yeah, go there
possibly,
using his read technique on him.
yes, that's very, very disturbing.
And there's no telling how many lies he told that man. And I don't, what they did was wrong. Yes, but it's not an offense where they're going to get a life sentence out of it, or, committed sentenced to death and all these things. So it was serious, but not that serious. So there's no telling what Holman told him that made him want to trigger what he did to himself. You know what I mean? And that's sad. I mean, think about it. If you're Kathy Allen and you're sitting there being told all these things, and they're trying to convince you we have proof your husband did it, what might she have done when she got home that night? Can you imagine what her emotions were like once they arrested her husband, and then she had to go home and face their daughter, and what she probably went through that entire night in her head? I know my husband. I don't think he'd do this, but they're telling me he did, and they've got absolute unequivocal proof that he's the bridge guy. He's the voice. It's his bullet, all these things. That's scary.
Not just scary, it's disturbing.
It is. I mean, that could have triggered a heart attack in her. And like I was reading a comment about the panic attacks, I haven't had a heart episode. Fortunately, because they do run in my family, but I do have panic attacks. And certain situations can trigger a panic attack, and you will absolutely feel like you're dying. And I imagine she had multiple panic attacks that night when she got home after being told everything she was being told. And now my husband's handcuffed in jail. And in a matter of days, he's about to be shipped off to prison, pre-trial. That's insane in America. It's just should not ever be allowed. And if your tiny little jail can't accommodate and keep your suspect safe who hasn't been proven to do anything, then you need to reevaluate your jail. I'm sorry, you got to make accommodations at some point in time to house these people in your county jails. You can't just give us an excuse, well, we're a tiny jail, we don't got no room, we can't keep them safe. That's bullshit. I'm sure you got a little isolation room where you throw the ones in that break the rules. Every jail's got one. Put him in there. Keep him safe right there in isolation, right there in the county, and do right by them and give them their rights until they go to trial. That never happened in this case. Not one time. Even when the defense would come out and say, we want to get him transferred back to a county, but we still can't do that, even though you had Cass County offer to take him. We can do it here. We'll house him here. The judge is like, nope, we'll just keep him in prison for a little bit longer. It's okay. That had to be so hard on his wife. It was hard on him, but it had to be equally as hard for his wife.
Well, and to have the original judge that issued that safekeeping order immediately after that recuse himself from the case. Immediately.
And claim because it was dangerous. What was so dangerous about it? It's not any more dangerous than any other criminal case out there. Come on, have you seen the amount of support for Koberger out there? But it was not so dangerous they couldn't keep him in the Latah County Jail. They did it. And they gave him his vegan meals. And he got his suit and tie for all of his hearings, which is not normal. You usually only get your suit and tie for trial. You usually appear at your hearings in your jail issued jumpsuits or whatever. So none of us ever bought it. And the fact that he was arrested 1 month before Brian Koberger. And I had to hear for months and months and months about Koberger's rights. I'm over there hollering, what about Rick Allen's rights? They're like, You're telling me you're all about the Constitution and it's about rights, but here we got another man, you know, charged with something just as horrible, if not more horrible, in my opinion. They're both extremely disturbing cases for what was done to these victims. But why are we not looking over here? If that's what you claim you're about, is constitutional rights, you are a liar like Holman. And I've seen a few people on Twitter who I know have went so hard to support Koberger now come out and question what they're seeing here. Well, wasn't this done and didn't they have that? Well, pay attention, you know, and that goes for a certain attorney out there. And I'm going to digress at this point.
This case like triggers that digression in most of us
Oh my
who care
God.
who care about justice for Abby and Libby.
Exactly. And that's what it is about. Because if this man legitimately did not do it, then whoever did do it is walking around scot-free, laughing. I mean, laughing right now, watching all of this go down. That's not doing those little girls any justice, and they deserve all the justice in the world. So it's not just about, you know, I know a lot of us get attacked for, oh, you're just supporting this guy. No, I let the evidence and the court filings lead me to where I got to with this case, because I absolutely wanted the right person convicted all along. Because when I tell you, I was on this case from the day it was announced they were missing. You don't want to ever see little kids killed in the woods, and you never want their killers to go free. You want it caught. And I had all the faith that, no, let me take that back. I was highly surprised after 5 years you arrest a local man that lived and worked right there among you. I'm like scratching my head going, what the hell? What in the world? I would expect the person to move away from the area. You know what I mean? Hey, I've gotten away so far. Let me get the hell up out of here before somebody turns on to me. You know what I mean? You would think that if it was a local person and they knew they did it, they're going to do whatever they can just to get away from it and distance themselves from that crime. As far, I'd have went to the other side of the country. I'd have got far away. That didn't happen here. So we want this to be the right person, but it does not look like it is. And I see the comments that come out even here in our chats and on Twitter. So do we think he's the right guy? You're not going to get me to tell you either way if I think he did or didn't do it, because you're just trying to push buttons at that point. I feel like right now I have no idea, but I'm getting a better idea that this may not be your man, simply because of the investigation what's coming out in these testimonies. When we hear all this DNA was found and we didn't test it, and we felt like that particular piece wasn't important and that particular piece wasn't important. It's like, no way. You have failed these victims in so many ways. So many ways.
And in failing them, failing all of us.
Exactly. There were a lot of people who put their heart and soul and we all want the right person found. That's what we should always want. We shouldn't be looking for the cases with the crazy stuff and, you know, all these things, you know, just and seek that out. No, we should want justice regardless. And it doesn't feel like that ever happened with this case. Ruling out people very early on, losing, you know, extremely important interviews, and losing witnesses' statements, and all these things that we see playing out here. You can only cover up your bad investigation for so long before the truth comes out.
So the truth is coming out. So hopefully the jury sees that. I mean, I really do have faith in this jury.
I do too. I think they're seeing a lot, you know, and even with listening to Andrea and Hidden True Crime as well, with their statements or comments about the jurors. And that one reporter that we listened to a little earlier, he had some thoughts on these particular jurors. And from what I'm picking up on by listening to those people, this jury is having a hard time buying Rick Allen's the guilty party here. There's reasonable doubt.
Yeah, well, I think they're asking the investigators and the experts the right questions. that,
Yeah.
that could lead to reasonable doubt about their conclusions about the quality and thoroughness of the investigation, which we're finding out is like a huge problem. I mean, honestly, so I'm gonna say what I said last night, like hopefully a little shorter. But when I first heard Richard Allen got arrested, I was like, cool, they got the guy. They got the guy that
Yeah.
killed Abby and Libby. He needs his day in court. But you know, if law enforcement arrested him, then I put my faith in them, and I've got like a 90% certainty level at that point that he's the guy and that he's going to be punished for this. And then
Yeah.
as the case wore on, I started listening to Defense Diaries and Bob, who is a defense lawyer, so his perspective is from that, and he's admitted that it's always going to be that way. He's a defense lawyer,
Right.
but he started pointing out how Richard Allen's rights were being violated. He wasn't talking about guilt or innocence.
Exactly.
He said it multiple times. I don't know if Rick Allen did it or not, but I do know that you shouldn't be in solitary confinement for months on end in a state prison in pretrial detention. That's just not right. You shouldn't have guards with odinous patches leering over your shoulder, watching you in your conferences with your attorneys. You shouldn't have a judge that fires your attorneys. You shouldn't, it just so many
Because
things.
she didn't like the Frank's motion that brought up the Odinist. That's the whole thing right there that kind of tipped the scale for me. Because I'm right there with you. I was watching Bob and watching the rights of this man, and Bob was right. He wasn't wrong. But when I realized, when the Frank's motion came out and all that was talked about there, when a lot of us who had already dug into who those people and saw what they were about, then that motion came out. And then to find out that the very place you sent him has guards wearing those patches on their uniforms, that's a big red flag to me. That made no sense whatsoever. That y'all are denying this Odinism exists, but yet your own prison guards are participating in that type of thing. And if you go look at one of their TikToks, one of the men accused, it wasn't accused, they were downright wearing the patches. Court ordered to remove them. So then he went out and got a tattoo on his face and still kept his job at the prison. But when I went and viewed his TikTok, I was like, holy shit. So y'all want to say it's not Odinism, it's heathenry. Guess what? Heathens of Indiana do adopt the Odinism stuff. But Joe, before I get off track here on that, somebody had a good question for you. Where did it go? It was Jackie. Joe, do you understand what small bridge Rick was referring to? Was that the Freedom Bridge or the little blue bridge? Because I only jumped into Allie's live a little bit for a few minutes earlier, and I heard you guys discussing the map and the way that Rick said he went. And I would like to talk about that a little bit because I turned that off because we were getting ready to go live. So
Yeah. Do you want to get into that now? Okay.
Is there much more on that to read about that we don't really?
Why don't I let you keep reading on that? I need to take a quick break, and I'll be right back, and I will pull up a map, and we can talk about that small bridge.
Okay, I don't know where you left off here.
Right at the top, Alan says he had a heart attack. So we talked about the heart attack, but then we didn't talk about working at CVS and Walmart.
Okay, so while Joe gets that stuff prepared, guys, I'm going to finish reading this up and get our summary wrapped up here on this. So he, tells them about his heart attack, and he suffers from depression and anxiety. Alan tells investigators in the video that he worked at CVS since 2013 and previously worked at a location in Peru. He says he worked for Walmart for 10 years before that and left because he was tired of bureaucracy, which is normal for a lot of people. Mullen brings up February 2017. Alan says he was at his mom's in Peru while his wife was working and left there about 11:15, and he went home and got a jacket, even though it was warm out. It by Indiana standards, it was warm out, but mine, it would have been a little chilly still, so not unusual to get a jacket, especially if you're going to go into the woods. Temps tend to drop a little bit there. They do around here anyway. It's a little chillier. So then Alan said he walked down to the bridge, to the high bridge, went out a little bit on a platform and watched the fish. Alan says he then left. He says he parked either on the bridge side or near a smaller bridge. Liggett shows him a map of the area, and Mullins explains things on the map. At least it wasn't a hot mess like trying to explain that shit to Stefan Stearns on a map. Mr. I don't know what the hell's going on. Sorry, I got off track. I'll get back on. Alan says he didn't go out all that often, but that it varied and that he had gone out a time or two in the winter months. Mullen asked Alan if there was another way he would have driven to get there. Alan says maybe, but really they always took the same route through town. Through downtown. And yeah, because if you go, you can get there coming that way, that direction as well. Alan says he was driving downtown a few days after the girls died when the DNR officer called and they agreed to meet at the Save-A-Lot. I remember they were in Dolan's testimony. Alan refused to meet at home or at the jail. And then Alan conferred with his attorney. And then the defense brought up, well, he was on his way to the grocery store, so he told you just to meet him there. So that's what happened, apparently. So, sorry, I had to get my voice back. Alan says he was driving downtown a few days later, and that's when he met with Mr. Dolan at the Save-A-Lot. And he said he thought about it a lot because he was probably there and around them. Alan says he told Dolan he saw 3 girls. He thought one was babysitting 2 of the girls, and he thought they all looked alike. So he took a good look at him, I guess, as you walk past. That's not unusual. I'm a people watcher. I look at a lot of people. Depends on my mood, really. So the reporter reports at this point in the courtroom, Richard Allen is shaking his head. Oh, he's not in agreement with that statement. In the video, Allen said there were 2 cars at the end of the trail near the entrance, a sedan and an SUV. Allen says he left around 1:30, 1:45. So I guess that's what time he told Dolan that day that he had left the trails. Because there's like these different reports of the time frame that Allen arrived and left and all of that. So his original statement to Dolan was he left by 1:45. Which would have been long before the video of Bridge Guy was ever shot. I'm going to look at comments while we wait on Joe.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Where did McCain park? I don't know who McCain. Was that somebody that was there visiting?
I don't remember that name either.
Yeah, I don't know that name either, Kelt. Yes, effeminate was the word
Effeminate.
used.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. That's how you pronounce it. Okay.
Effeminate,
Like,
yes. He
when I
had
heard it on,
effeminate eyes.
when I heard it the other day, I was like, did they just say feminine eyes? Like, I thought it was feminine at first, and I read it. I was like, oh, that's not what they said at all. I would have been
Well, but it kind of means the same thing.
right. Yeah.
All right, so let's drop out of that because this small bridge thing seems to be the hot topic right now. I got to find my StreamYard tab.
Yeah, digital. I don't know that the prosecution originally hired Tobin. I've not heard that, but he was who the defense wanted to bring in and was told, no, you can't bring your metallurgist in to dispute this Miss I'm Never Wrong with my firing a weapon 6 times to make it fit narrative.
All right, here we go. So here we have, is this sharing? Okay, it's sharing, good. So here we have Rick and Kathy Allen's house is down here on Whiteman Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And they live just outside the cozy little town of Delphi, Indiana. They bought that house in 2006. So they'd been there for over 10 years, 11 years, almost 11 years. And they had been to the Monon High Bridge over here, the northeast corner of this map, several times. Lots of photos taken there. But usually it said they would drive west, so they go west along whatever that county road is. Do I have roads turned off? Let's turn it on. Boom. West 200 north. So they live just off of 200 north.
Yeah.
Take that over to Prince William Road. Why on earth do we have a road in US of A called Prince William Road? Anyway.
We got a lot of crazy name streets around
Yeah.
these parts.
So they go into town and then they go straight out Main Street. So when you go into town on Prince William Road, takes you past, okay, so that's Washington Street. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can get oriented to where we
So
are.
didn't he make the statement that he took like it was a loop or something? Is that what y'all were talking
Yes.
about?
So that's all right. We'll get there fast. All right.
Okay.
I'm dawdling too much. So you go up East Main Street, and when you get over here to East Main Street at Old State Road 25, this is the loop around here. Let me do a quick path. So I think when he was saying loop, move this out of the way. It was kind of like you get over here and you go boom, 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 go around West 300 North to here, and then you come down, and right there's the CPS building. So that's the initial theory of a lot of people, is that he drives around the loop and he comes over here and he backs into a parking lot. And now I've got the 2017 aerial imagery on, April of 2017. So this is literally just 2 months after the crime. So the building is still there. It has since been demolished and removed, but supposedly he backed in here. So if he backed in so you couldn't see the parking lot, did he back in against the building? Did he like come right here? Did he come over here and back in against the building so he couldn't see his parking lot or his license plate? Did he back in over here? Did he do like a 3-point turn and back in here? In which case you could see his license plate from the Hoosier Heartland, right?
Yeah.
But we heard in testimony today something about he went by the small bridge and parked over by the small bridge, not by the big blue bridge. So the big blue bridge, that's the Freedom Bridge. Let me turn off
Right.
roads. Let me turn off roads because you can actually see how blue it is right there.
And it goes over the highway, right? The
It
Hoosier
goes over the
Heartland.
Hoosier Heartland Highway. Yes, and when you drive under
But
it, you can't miss it.
yeah, and the small bridge doesn't, right? The small
Right. So here's a
yeah.
small bridge. So if they came up through town along East Main Street and they turn left right here, and because they didn't want to go up to the Hoosier Heartland, and I can understand why, because it's actually kind of dangerous. You have the top of the hill is up here, and you have people coming down at a high rate of speed, people coming up. And this is one of the few intersections that didn't get changed because of there were some fatal accidents along the Hoosier Heartland right after it was first built because of entrances like this, where people would like sit here and they would wait for so long and then they pull out and they'd either get sideswiped by somebody coming southbound or T-boned by somebody coming northbound. So they changed a lot of those. They didn't change that.
And looking at the map, and I've been on the map so many times since the man was arrested, it wouldn't be unusual in my mind. It's not unusual to go the way he said he went. And there, I'll have to.
He said it was their usual route, and I'm sure Kathy would probably confirm that too.
Yeah, a lot of folks, because I think Betsy even went that direction and went under the small bridge. I might have that wrong. She may have went the Hoosier Heartland and saw the big bridge, or the Freedom Bridge, but it's not uncommon. And there's a lot of good videos out there that show you that particular drive. People are speculating, which route would he have taken from his home to the bridge. And people have put out videos of both directions.
Right. But here is something that you have that is a bridge, a small bridge over that loop route. So this is the loop route. This is Old State Road 25, which becomes up here County Road 300 North, West County Road 300 North. At some point, there's the street name changes somewhere in there. It doesn't really matter. There's a small bridge right there. And look at this. There's a parking lot right here that is officially called the Monon High Bridge Trail parking lot. And it's a small parking lot. And it sounds like today that testimony in in the interrogation puts him possibly parking here.
Versus the CPS building.
Yes. So you park here, and here's another thing: is one of the witnesses, and I think it might have been Betsy Blair. It might have been another one, but one of the witnesses said they parked at the niches entrance. And this was when I was in there, and I wrote it in my notes. I wrote niches in my notes. Niches, Niches. Let me pull up that website real quick. Is a local group that does a lot of preserves. They take a lot of forested land, and they ask people to donate it and preserve it as a preserve, to preserve nature, as a nature preserve. That's what I was looking for. So Niches actually has their local offices here in Lafayette. I've done some work for them over the years, some charity work for them over the years, because they're a nonprofit organization. But they have Niches Delphi Monon Trail.
I've heard of the PT Cruiser as well. Anders, interesting. I'm checking on comments as Joe's talking. Yes, so the small bridge is like an overpass, right, guys? Because I'm not from Indiana, but I have watched multiple videos on it. So that's not actually a walking bridge like the Freedom Bridge. It is an overpass bridge, correct? For cars to drive over.
It's got a walking. No, are you talking about the small bridge that we're looking at right here? No, that's actually a gravel drive, and it looks to me like it's mostly a walking trail. Like maybe, so if you come down here into this subdivision over here, you possibly could drive a car up there. Yeah, it looks like there's a grass strip in the middle of that drive. So people have driven cars up there. There's kind of like a cul-de-sac turnaround at the end of it, right by that bridge. And I assume at some point in time it was intended for vehicle traffic, but I don't know if that's prohibited now or discouraged, or people don't do it. So maybe they do. Maybe they can get over to this parking lot at the trailhead and then get out and then walk the rest of the way. You wouldn't want to drive your car any further past this little intersection right here. Like maybe they could, maybe they would. You can even see off to the west that trail, and that's the old railroad corridor, and then it just kind of stops right there. But that's the west end. That's literally the west end of the Monon Trail, is right there in that part. Picture Black Rock Car, Clegg, Creek, Fisher. I'm looking for the Niches website on the Monon Bridge, and I'm just not finding it. I found it the other day. I saw it the other day. Do we have any interesting comments while I'm looking for this?
Let me see here. Yeah. So the Freedom Bridge is the walking bridge that you walk over the highway. I'm just looking at the comments here. Let me see if I can pull up.
Right. The Freedom Bridge is the quote unquote big blue bridge.
Yeah.
And it's just for walking. It's not for driving anymore. I would assume that they have some type of barricades up to prevent cars from driving across it.
The Freedom Bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was just you walk across it before you access the trails and stuff. That's what I thought. Right.
Correct. So the testimony today is confusing because he did say the small bridge, and there is no other small bridge. Allie was trying to say, well, maybe that's the Monon High Bridge. No, you can't park anywhere near the Monon High Bridge. So I think if he says he parked next to a small bridge, that's literally the only bridge that he could be talking about. So, I mean, you come up here from town, turn left on Old 25, and then turn right and go down this gravel drive up into this parking area right here. And there's supposedly on the other side of the road now there's an Indiana Bicentennial Monument. So I'm going to fast forward the aerial photography to how it is now, 2024. So that parking lot is even more defined now, but they have rocks in front of it, so you can't drive. Okay, you can't drive over there, but there's an Indiana Bicentennial Monument now on the other side of the road. And there are trails. There are more trails now leading to that. You could possibly drive a car up there, it looks like. Maybe drive up here from this little subdivision, drive over the little bridge. That's the only little bridge that I know is in the area.
Yeah. That's the only one that I know of from all the videos I've watched in the past of everywhere around there. Because when you are into true crime and a story breaks or a case pops off, running to the maps is one of the first things I do. I got to get a gist for the area, to put things together in my head. And so I've seen a lot of the different drives and the different bridges and how you get there and things like that. And so I'm trying to find some video of that, but I need to save some so we can just pull them up when we're talking about it. Oh, good Lord. One just popped up, guys, and it's Gray Hughes. He gonna get mad at me again. I wonder how mad he would get at me if I actually showed one of his. And the sad part is, dude's pretty good at mapping and doing little videos like that, but that's about all he's good at. Get mad at people is one of his strong suits as well. And wanting to block you and all that nonsense.
I can't do that. Life's too short. I mean, I'll block the trolls because I have a very, very
you don't block
sensitive
somebody
troll
for
meter.
asking a damn question.
No, no.
Like,
Trolling and having a different opinion are two completely different things.
I mean, it wasn't even a difference of opinion. It was just asking a damn question. And I love to look at the comments and read the questions and try to, are we all thinking the same thing? Or somebody may have information I don't, a better sense of something I don't, that kind of thing. But just to block because they asked a question, dude,
So
get over yourself.
tell me about that one rabbit trail you tried to take me down the other night, where there's where there's a back road, a back way to get from Rick and Kathy's house to the Monon High Bridge. Remember when I showed you that trail?
Oh yeah. Let me go look at that real quick and refresh. We can go down so many sometimes it's not even funny.
Right.
Okay, let me look here.
So this would be a conspiracy theory that presumes that Rick is guilty, and he got to the Monon High Bridge a completely different way by going along the county road and then up kind of a county road, and then at some point that becomes a private drive.
300 north?
200 north. 200 north to, all right, I got to turn roads back on to see what the name of that one is. So 200 north over to 625 west. So this is 625 west, and it comes up along some houses out in the country, and there's a small tributary, actually a decent sized tributary to the Deer Creek is the Bridge Creek. They call this the Bridge Creek. Those are probably actually some gorgeous properties there overlooking the creek, and you look out to the west and watch the sunset out of the west side of your house. Anyway, that leads eventually to this property over here. And guess who owns this property over here? Not this property, but that field. Actually, I think this property may also be owned by the Webbers. Actually, I think it is. I have a map. But so we always talk about this private drive over here that comes up to Brad Weber's house. And that's where a lot of searchers went. That's where Kelsey went. She went all the way up to his gate. That's right here at the edge of the woods leading to his house. But if you were to take that and stop and park your car somewhere along the edge of this field, and in February, there's no crops in the field. It's going to be kind of muddy though. So you got to be careful. But right there, that trail that you see is the Monon Railroad, the old Monon Railroad. corridor that goes right through there. It comes all the way to the south end of the county. We lose it somewhere in there, but pick it up right there, and that would take you right up to the Monon High Bridge, going a back way through private properties. And I can't even remember why you sent me down that rabbit trail.
I don't really remember either. We go down way too many, but wouldn't it take, so if he went that way, the long way, wouldn't it take longer, to get there from his house?
No, that's the most direct route, because otherwise he's got to come all the way. Move this out of the way. He's got to keep going this way. Let's start there where instead of turning left, let's go here, and then gosh darn it, clear that. He's got to come all the way. Let's see where the bridge is that crosses the Deer Creek. It's right here. So if he goes out in the country, and that's what Mullen tried to keep getting him to admit, is that he went out in the country. So to do that, he's got to go 2.5 miles out of the way over this way, come all the way up to this county road. Let's turn the road names back on so we can identify that. So he's got to go all the way to County Road 450 West, and all the way up to 300 North, West 300 North, and then come down around over the bridge and then over here. I mean, he's got to go way around if he wants to go that way.
Well, according to this one video from JLR, because I'll tell you, to be honest, JLR and I have a weird relationship. So anyway, this guy, before I could get a good idea of the mirror's location, because on Google Maps, it doesn't really show you what you need to see and all these things. Where I figured out when I got an actual visual was from a JLR video, because he took us to that spot where they were dropped off. And I was like, holy cow, it's a tiny little road. There's all, but there's, according to this video that I just pulled up of his from Richard Allen's home, it would take like a 4-minute drive. And he'd get it because he really didn't live that far from the bridge. And in small towns, it doesn't take that long to get from A to B. So I never imagined it being this long, drawn out drive. And in this particular video, let me fast forward through it so I can see if he actually goes under the little bridge, because I know what the little bridge looks like.
Okay, so the blue route I have on there now is the one that Mullen wanted Rick Allen to admit to, because they have video on the Hoosier Harvester camera of a black Ford Focus driving westbound on County Road 300 North. So yeah. I know my waypoints are way crazy on this, but that's generally that shows.
Yeah, because that's why it matters which way he went, because the Hoosier Harvester video is what they're relying on to help pinpoint times. And when we see Kelsey's car go by as she drops the girls off, we see Sarah Carbo's car go by as she drives by. Where's your muddy and bloody man walking by back toward his car if you claim he left the crime scene a certain particular way? And that's the man Sarah saw. He has to walk past that store, the Hoosier Harvest store, to get back to his car. But it matters where he parked at, too. If he parked in a certain location, you still would have had to walk past that point to get back toward that car. And that's why it's going to matter as to what he says where he parked at. Because if he says he parked at a certain location and you don't have to really go past that store, he's never seen his car or anything. Now, I don't know if that's the little bridge. I see a little bridge in this video, but it's like right by all these houses and things, and it doesn't appear to me to be what they were talking about, but I don't know. I'm going to have to do some research. And again, tonight, we got to listen to somebody who was there giving their commentary on what was actually said again, to get a better feel for what that whole conversation in that video, you know what I mean? As to where he parked and all those things. I'm still looking through JLR's videos here, because he actually had some good video footage of the drives over there and where everything was at. And a lot of them were done a long, long time ago. So
okay, so we have Rick and Kathy's house, and we have 3 possible ways to get to the Monon High Bridge that day. You have,
Okay.
he goes through downtown, which is the loop route. And once he turns off of that and he goes under this bridge over here, and there's a little bridge right there. Sorry for my crappy waypoints, guys, but he goes under the bridge right there, and he either parks here where there's a green marker that says Monon High Bridge Trail, or he goes all the way through the loop and he parks over here by the CPS building. Or, which is what Mullen was trying to convince him to admit to, was that he goes way out here to the east, and he goes up County Road 450 West, and then he travels on County Road 300 North all the way over there.
And in my opinion, that's him trying to establish that he was trying to be not seen.
No, he's trying to establish that the black Ford Focus they saw in the Hoosier Harvester video that he took screen caps of is Rick Allen's car.
So he would have had to have gone that way to be seen at that point.
Right, because that car is
Okay.
traveling east to west.
Yeah. Exactly. So where Richard Allen says he parked in, according, in, Mullen's take on, or Holman's take on where he parked could be two very different things.
Right, and Mullen's take, all of them. And then the red line here is the shortest path to get to the Monon High Bridge, and that requires you traveling through private property to get there. But it's Weber's property, and there are rumors that have been unconfirmed by me or anybody else that I know of that there was some type of relationship between the Webers and Rick Allen. You would almost have to think that you would at least be able to park there without anybody being pissed at you that you're parking on private property to get over there to that. But you can see there's some kind of a trail that crosses the railroad tracks down here. You see that? There's a trail, like an ATV trail or something, that goes from the Weber's property on this side of the railroad tracks to the Weber's property on that side of the railroad tracks.
Yeah. Yep.
And I would guess that's not a farm implement trail, because a farmer is going to cross that and he's going to get into the field, like boom. He's not going to go driving around the field with his tractor. He's going to get in the field and he's going to till it and plant it and harvest it.
Exactly.
So yeah, three interesting theories. I'm not sure that I
Not
followed
me.
the I'm not sure that I followed the red trail. The ones that we're hearing about in court are either the orange one that goes this way or the blue one that goes the other way. And the state's preferred case is to go up the blue one and drive past the Hoosier Harvester camera east to west. So I hope that answers people's questions.
I don't, yeah. It's going to be interesting to hear the rest of that testimony that came out during the interviews. Because that man, it just sounds like they're trying to make things fit and accusing him of lying. If you're going to accuse the man of lying, you're also going to accuse him of lying about the route he took that day. Especially if you need him to go the other way, because that's when this vehicle was seen, and to not query those particular cars. And then there was also a discrepancy, because I've heard, during Holman's first time on the stand, I thought that we heard him say they didn't retrieve that video for 5 years. But then I heard, I don't know if it was on Twitter, where they were like, no, the FBI was the one that got that video. Well, they don't wait 5 years to take video. They need it right then, right now. So, and we know from the Kerberger case and multiple others, when you get a video of a car, you got to get a car expert involved to try to figure out what kind of car you have, make, model, all the things. That doesn't seem to be done in this case. We're just going to take some screenshots of these cars passing. Oh, look, there's Sarah's car. Oh, there's Kelsey's. Well, whose car is that? Oh, look, does it look similar to Rick Allen's? But where's that video? And if it's true that it wasn't collected until 5 years later, that you only grabbed, I still have a hard time. Okay, let me back up. If it's true that they didn't collect that actual video for 5 years, I have a hard time believing it still existed 5 years later. Because a lot of times when you go to collect footage, they have a 30-day loop and it will record over. things. You know what I mean? Most businesses don't put a lot of money into those camera systems, and it's recording over every 30 days and things of that nature. That's why it's important to get there as quickly as you can and canvas the area and pull all your videos that you can find. And they literally branch out and go every direction because you don't know who you're looking for or which direction they came and went. So you're going to canvas your entire radius, around your crime scene and pull all the video you can. And 9 times out of 10, you download it or you take it, and you don't just, oh, can I take some screenshots of your video? But I'm going to leave the video with you, even though it may contain very critical evidence. That's not cool. And if that happened that way, that's another huge mistake in this case. And I have a note here to find where I saw that at. And I want to think it was in the first time he testified. And I do have those notes. And I'm going to be going through that stuff here in just a few minutes before the evening updates come out later. Because there's still so many unanswered questions in this seemingly shoddy investigation.
Seemingly? That's
Yeah,
generous.
seemingly.
That's very generous.
Yeah, I'm trying to be generous, Joe. I don't, I'm still trying to be open-minded and not form an opinion, but it's hard not to form opinions. Come on, we're all going to have them. And it's just not looking good for the state under any circumstance at this point.
Okay, so the blue path around the east side is 5.25 miles long. He goes out in the country, he's got to go 5 miles to go all the way out to the east, north, and then back to the west. Let's see the orange path. Oh, wait, no, that's not even, holy cow, that's not even to the beginning of his house. Let's change that. Let's drag that corner back right in front of his house. I'm going to guess it's going to be around 6 now. Measurements, 6 miles. So he's got to go 6 miles out of his way, or 6 miles to go around the east side, the blue path. The orange path.
DB, I know, dude. I got you. You crack me up, man. Your Google search thing really got me. I was like,
Right.
I was laughing so hard at that shit. I mean, I kind of felt ashamed a little bit, but I couldn't help it. Like, no, we this far in the game, we deserve a good laugh. I shared that with Joe the minute I saw it.
All right, so the orange path going around the quote-unquote, oops, God dang it. Properties. All right, let's zoom out a little bit. The orange path, which is the quote-unquote loop path that goes up around where old 25 loops around and becomes County Road 300 North, West County Road 300 North. That length is less than 3 miles. So it's half the distance. And granted, you have to go through town. So your average speed limit is going to be lower.
Yeah.
So that's going to be average speed limit 25 miles an hour, say. Your average speed limit going the other way might be 45 to 50, maybe. I would say 45 probably on those country roads. So probably a little bit faster to go the other way, a little bit faster to go through town because it's half as long.
Yeah. I mean, unless you just want to get out for a little drive, you might go the longer way. But if you're just going to go drive to take your walk, you're going to go the quickest way.
Yeah, you're looking at cornfields. You're looking at cornfields and bean fields. There's not a whole lot of nature to look at that country route. I mean,
yeah, I got to pass. I don't pass bean fields, but I got to pass some cotton fields and peanut. We were like, they grow lots of peanuts out here. I literally live. I have one neighbor. Well, I got neighbors, but they're further away. Across the street, I have a big field. Beside me, to the left and right, and behind me, all I have is fields. This year, they grew cotton. Last year, it was peanuts. They alter every year, apparently. Thank God this year it was just the cotton, because the peanuts, man, they made me, I couldn't even go outside. It was horrible. But all around these fields, and there's literally 2 ways for me to get to town. And both ways I go, there's going to be very limited cameras, because these houses sit further off the road, because it's country. And if they got a ring cam or any kind of security cam, you're just going to see cars passing down the highway. it's going to be hard to see what kind of they are even, you know what I mean? And I know which route has the least amount of cameras. And that's just from me being in true crime and looking around as I drive, going, but they sit so far back. So sometimes if I don't mind the longer drive, because I'm that person. If I have a lot on my mind and I just need to get away, I go for a drive is not a big deal. So if he did, maybe he just took the longer way, but in my mind, he's not really going to do that day. He's just going out for a little while, take a walk, whatever. Who knows? That the way he went and the where he parked absolutely matters as to whether or not that was his car scene on that camera, especially if you can't bring in an expert to say that's his car or to give me good reason to believe that was his car besides your shoddy screenshot of a video. That's not going to fly in any other case. You're not going to walk into court with a screenshot off a video. I'm like, I'll be like, where's the video? You can do a lot of things with a screenshot these days and a camera and an app. We have a guy here, a local kid, being investigated right now because apparently there's an app out there and he can take pictures of girls off of Instagram that they're posting of themselves at the beach. We are on the Gulf Coast, so they're all at the beach a lot of times. And it's apparently they have not released the kid's name. He's a minor. He's got a very prominent last name, apparently. I'm digging. But they can take this app, and what he was doing was taking these girls' photos off of Instagram, and then he can make them nude using an app to alter the damn pictures. And it's a current investigation going on right now. And I'm very interested because we can manipulate a lot of things right now. All this AI stuff that's out there, and now we know there's sketchy stuff being done to the bridge guy video. Because if you look at the picture of Abby, there's nobody behind her that my naked eye can see. That tells me he's either just entering that bridge or he's an invisible man. And then suddenly in court, we got a picture now where they showed the picture and we see bridge guy right behind Abby. How did he get there that fast? Did he run? He ain't scared of them rickety ass boards on that bridge. I mean, the whole thing didn't make any sense to me. Still doesn't. So there's a lot of manipulation that can take place out there. And people posting stuff on Twitter and people take it to heart that it's real when it's not. I don't know. I don't trust your screenshot of a video. I need to see the actual video. Then I need you to bring me in some FBI or CIA, who the hell ever, car expert analogy. I mean, when I tell you, Andrea knows because Andrea's deep in the Idaho 4 case. Well, she kept slipping up. I'm laughing at her because that's not Freudian slip. You're saying Idaho because you know how deep we got into the Idaho stuff, and Andrea's done it. There's grainy car footage over there. We got the FBI involved with these experts. Now we're looking for different years of car. I mean, it's like you need to prove to me that's that man's car or get me close to there. You know what I mean? And I haven't seen that. Now, we haven't heard anything about that video coming out in court yet. They're doing interrogation videos. Will they produce that video at some point from the Hoosier Harvester for the jury to witness for themselves? If I'm the defense, I want it out there. I need that played. Unless it shows something I don't want it to be showing. Does it show anybody? We ain't heard nothing about a screenshot or anything on that video of a man walking past muddy and bloody. So figuring out where Rick parked is a huge deal. It really is.
Not only have we not seen anything, we have testimony from the state's witnesses that they never saw any individual on Hoosier Harvest Store video ever. They never saw any individuals on camera ever.
Right.
Well, that day,
Well, you need them that day.
Right.
Because if you're going to tell us Sarah saw him walking muddy and bloody, and you say he parked at the CPS building, he has to walk past that camera to get to that car. That's a huge deal. We need to know if that's true or not. So it absolutely matters as to which way he parked. So it's going to be interesting to see the rest of that testimony about, or whatever comes out about these particular interrogation videos and what Rick, because I guess when they went to break, they still had more to look at or talk about. I don't really know. I was looking for some updates here on Twitter. I don't really see any right now.
No, they must be going a little bit long today. Well, she said she was going to go to 6 o'clock every day, and I don't think she has yet to go to 6 o'clock on any given day.
They said that yesterday was like that. They went to almost 6 o'clock. That's what
Oh.
Lauren said when I watched her. But I don't know. I don't know. There's so many damn reports coming out. You know, that's the part of the problem. I do not distrust what Andrea, Lawyer Lee, and Lauren are saying at all. But the fact that we don't, there's just, we're having to rely on them so heavily, and bless their hearts, they're having to go through hell just to be there to bring us these reports. Bob, and then I'll say it. Those are the four you got right there. You got Bob, and you got Bob because Allie's at home and Allie's doing her damn day. Poor lady can't even read her husband's writing. Bob, get it together a little bit better with your handwriting. If you're listening, Bob, we appreciate you. We really do. But Allie can't read your writing, so that's a little hard for her. So do right by your wife. So we got Bob. We have Andrea and Lawyer Lee, and we have Lauren from Hidden True Crime. And they're all putting together amazing efforts just to be there, and it's insane that Judge Gold's made it that difficult. Was that part of the reason she kept it at Carroll County? Because she knew tiny courtroom, I can only accommodate so many. Ha, ha, ha. We got Coburger transferred to Ada County because they got a bigger facility and better security and know how to handle high profile cases. They've done it twice already with the Daybell and Vallow cases. So yeah, that's where we're going to have Coburger's trial at now because of the accommodations. Little tiny Latah County couldn't have handled it. No more than Carroll County can handle it. But the judge didn't see fit to move it to a bigger location, which is harder on families to get there. Now, because a lot of people are coming after the Gonzalez family in Idaho for having a GoFundMe to help them get to court. Well, I just saw it a little while ago where Madison Mogen's family is doing the same thing. And I think it's disgusting people go after these families for trying to raise funds to get there. We know that Carrie Timmons has had to, people are trying to help her as well, as it does, because she's out of town. So it puts a strain on everybody involved, but the families especially, when things get shifted around. But I feel like that was part of the reason they kept it where they did, because they knew they were only going to be able to accommodate a small handful of people. And I think she hoped they get tired and just give up and go home. Well, I don't think some of these are going to give up and just go home, because now they're in it for the long haul now.
Let's see. Okay, nobody. Old Camden Road. Yeah, I was looking at that earlier, actually. So, Old Camden Road.
Okay.
Old Camden Road is this little entrance over here, where I was saying you could possibly drive a vehicle up there. All right, we'll turn on road name so we can see that's Old Camden Road. Old Camden Road. Yeah, that comes up to this little like cul-de-sac turnaround, and you could conceivably drive a car over here and then come and park by the Monon High Bridge Trail. The little parking lot right there. So yeah, that's another possibility for getting there. You'd have to go over here off of Main Street quite a bit. You'd have to turn off on what on earth is that? Samuel Milroy Road. Okay. I don't know who Samuel Milroy is, but he has a road named after him. And then there's Old Camden Road, because that probably used to go northeast towards Camden, which is a little town in Carroll County. So, yeah, that's another possible access to this little parking lot on the west side, northwest of the Freedom Bridge. And
so All Eyes is saying that two people were seen. Is that on the Hoosier Harvester video? All Eyes, that they seen riding by on bicycles. So if they can see that, they should see Muddy Bloody walking by. Because that camera is not set far back off the road where it can't see, like I've described out here would be for where I live. It sits a closer to the road, and that's a small road. I'm dealing with Tulane County I call them highways. They're not. They're 2-lane county roads. But the Mears Farm Road there, Mears Farm Road, 300 North right there, that's a tiny little road. And the Hoosier Harvester doesn't sit that far back off. And I know where the camera's at. We've known for a long time where that camera's located. And it should absolutely see somebody walking past. But if it sees some people riding by on bikes, it would see a man walking past. You guys' comments crack me up. DB, I bet you're a really funny person because you just, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So when 35 wins 35 actually makes a point, an interrogation where both sides can lie to each other. Why would we have laws that say that one side can't lie to the other? And we're talking specifically about police lying to a suspect. That's because
Yeah.
there's a power imbalance. You have somebody who can arrest you and detain you and make your life living hell.
Exactly.
That is the law enforcement to the suspect. The suspect cannot do that to the law enforcement official. Like the suspect lying to the police officer does absolutely nothing to damage that police officer or change their life in any way, shape, or form. The police officer lying to the suspect, as we see in this case, as evidenced in this case, changes their life to an inestimable degree. Like, I mean, there's a power imbalance. So you can't say that, oh, we got to have level playing field. Both parties can lie to each other. Not when there's a power imbalance like this. Not when police officers and law enforcement officials and interrogators have power over that suspect.
Yeah. I mean, all they got to do is, they can make your life a living hell. Even if you get up and walk out, they can still do a lot of things to mess with you, and try to get stuff on you or whatever. It's not, I understand using certain tactics with your suspect, but this flat out bullying, lying, swearing up and down, you already got unequivocal proof of something that you don't have. And we're seeing now in court, you didn't have nothing. You didn't call your blood spatter guy in until years later. That makes no sense. You don't do that. You don't wait for years to go by to test DNA, to bring in blood spatter experts. These are critical things to your crime scene. You want all that done in the beginning to establish your case. And, Holman's over here worrying about lying to somebody versus building his case. He thinks you're going to get somewhere with these lies. That this man is just going to, okay, you got me. Leave my wife alone. She didn't do this. I did it all. It's just insane that they can do that. Lying to Rick was one thing, but taking his wife into another room and lying to her too, trying to turn her against her husband, regardless. When you're married to somebody, especially for a long, long time, you hope you should know them. And I get it. You got a few serial killers out there who went years parading around as a family man, who their families claim they didn't know nothing about their odd behaviors, but that's happened.
Yeah, you've always wonder about the person that's leading a double life, right? The person who appears normal, who goes and works at the CVS pharmacy and then is leading a double life, but we have no evidence of that to date.
Right. Not in this case, we do not. If you look at BTK and Rex Horman, they were doing that. They were doing just that. BTK was married with 2 children and one of the most prolific serial killers we've ever seen. And apparently so is Rex Heuermann. Wife, 2 kids, mutilating sex workers in the basement. And nobody knew? There's nothing like that on Rick Allen's past or coming out now. of his past crimes. His 15, oh, Rex is over there with his like 30 damn throwaway phones. He's calling his victims' families on to harass him once he done what he did to them. It's horrible. It's disgusting and horrible that these
Well,
people are out there.
the thing is, with Rex Huerman, they found that shit when they went into his basement. They found his journals, they found his
Mm-hmm.
electronic devices, and they were able to find the evidence of that in his possession. I mean, apparently, and we've seen. I think we've seen probable cause
And
affidavits. We've seen press conferences. We've seen this evidence released pre-trial.
yeah, and one of his wife's hairs found on one of the victims. They tested that hair they found on that victim the minute they found it. We're testing it. It turned out it was his wife's hair, but they know that he picked up victims alive and well in his vehicle. Transferred DNA. Transferred from his wife is in the vehicle. Her hair gets on the seat. He goes about his business. He goes and picks up his next victim. She gets in the truck. Hair transfers from the seat to the victim. That's transferred DNA. Allegedly, in this case, right now, it's just transferred DNA. Not that she was there and participated, and that's how her hair got there. Then when we were looking at the Koberger case, there is a case out there, and Andrea knows about it. And that's when she was saying, when you want to say transfer DNA occurred, you got to back it up with a very good version of how. So people wanted to say, oh, Koberger's DNA was transferred to the sheath through this various different reasons. In this one particular case, and I don't remember the man's name. Okay, so he was a suspect in a crime, and he received an injury. So they had to call an ambulance. So they come and they put a pulse oximeter on his finger, which is the little thing that they clip on with that little red light. That's a pulse oximeter. They clip it on his finger. Transfer DNA occurred when that happened because the guy before him that rode in that ambulance, his DNA was still on that little piece of equipment. They didn't clean it all off. Therefore, transferring DNA. Now they're telling him, well, we got your DNA. It's a whole, I have to look that case up. Another friend of mine on Twitter, we were like, whoa, we were floored. Andrea knows of that case as well. But that's like there's two legit cases out there where transferred DNA absolutely occurred, but they figured out how and why and when, right? So all that's important. So it was bizarre to me they haven't tested all these hairs. And it's not surprising that Kelsey's hair showed up at the crime scene, especially if her clothes were, washed together. You wore my sweater, you were in my car that morning. All these things can be explained, but to have a rando's DNA show up and call that transfer, no, you got to get to how and why when to make it stick. A lot of different things can come into play with these cases. They're all different.
They are. And it's amazing how law enforcement can screw it up.
Oh, man. And the lengths they'll go to cover up those screw ups is a little bit of a shocker. I mean, we shouldn't be shocked because they shouldn't be doing it, but they're doing it. And they're doing it right now. You're going to bring out your DNA expert to explain to us how it's too complicated to test all your DNA samples. Yeah, we're not buying it.
Okay, so, all right, let me get back to StreamYard. I'm going to stop that. And
Yeah, Jane, there was one unknown female DNA that we know of, but they weren't looking for female DNA in this case. They were testing for only male stuff. Apparently. Do the Maxwells live on Camden? I never could pinpoint where the Maxwells lived, woman. I know the search warrant was served on their property at some point, but I never knew exactly where they lived.
okay, so one of the witnesses when I was attending trial, it was the first day that I was there. So it was Friday, day one. One of the witnesses said that she parked at the niches entrance. Niches is I think how she pronounced it. And whatever attorney, whatever side, I don't even remember if it was the state or if it was the defense, said, so you mean that's the Mears Farm entrance? I don't think that's true. So niches is a land trust that establishes preserves. And there they have a preserve along the trails.
Of them, they do.
Yes. Hold on. I've got to make sure I'm in the right window. So they have several preserves, and if you look on the land records website, they show up as being a property of the city of Delphi, but they're actually a land trust for niches. And I wonder if niches didn't even end up donating it to the city for some reason.
Yeah.
But let me make
that,
sure.
that happens around here a lot too, because I border a very large state forest. It's one of the biggest in the state. This is a huge county with a south end and a north end. The south end is going to put you right along the Gulf of Mexico. The north end puts you deep in the Florida pines. And that's where I currently live, is on that end. I got a lot of state forest around me, lots of trails, lots of land gets donated and become part of the system. You know what I mean? And part of our trails and stuff like that. You can literally get not too far down the highway from me here. You can enter one of the areas where you can camp, day camp. You can camp, or you can just go down for the day, and you can get on the trail system and hike all the way to the Appalachian Mountains if you wanted to. I don't got that kind of time or energy, but I wouldn't be a bad thing. But I'm not trying it today. But it's beautiful out there, you know?
Right. And so this land trust, Nietzsche's Land Trust, so let's look at their website. Whistler Woods is this particular preserve that's along the trails. Situated along the Deer Creek, Whistler Woods offers majestic views looking from atop the Slate hillside down into the Deer Creek Valley, affords views of the meandering creek and forested creek valley, which we're all very familiar with now at this point. The trail leads down to the valley and up to the edge of the creek. Across the creek, a slate wall with water dripping from seeps gives a Zen garden-like feel to the property. Evidence of wildlife activity is frequently found, from beaver chews to tracks in the soft soil at water's edge. Yeah, tracks that don't get investigated by crime scene investigators. Anyway.
So I have an account that I follow on Twitter. She and I talk. Apparently, they've got wasn't Gallipo the warden from Westville?
Gallipo, yes.
Okay, that's how you say it. They've got him on stand today, this afternoon.
Ooh.
Let me get back to her original. This afternoon, the jury heard about the alleged confessions from Richard Allen made while being held in prison. The first witness of the afternoon was former Westville Corrections Facility warden. He told the jury that Allen spoke to him several times. While on suicide watch in a cell at the maximum security prison. The account is Angels Boken Halo. She's been posting pretty good updates. Let's see. He continued testifying, saying he did not document any of Allen's verbal confessions he made to him. Why wouldn't you document that?
Holy.
He also said he never talked to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office about Allen and did not follow up on why he was moved out of Westville. You're the warden and you don't. Okay, well, that's not surprising. I did not neglect my duties, he said. State prosecutor Nick McClellan jumped in to say he had Allen on suicide watch as an order from his psychologist. Rozzi asked one final question about the camcorders during the visits. So this is going to be some good updates coming out later. She said it came from her Wish TV, Joe, updates. Gallipo left the stand at 2:49. So if you want to pull them back up, they may have some good updates for this afternoon's stuff. Let me see. Wish TV, where'd you go?
5 p.m. Yes, we have a 5 p.m. update. Let's hit it.
Awesome.
Stop that. Nobody cares about the Nietzsche's entrance, but I do. We're going to get back to the Nietzsche's entrance at some point.
Yeah. Especially when we get a complete readout of that testimony about that.
Okay, so 5 p.m. Westville employee. Okay, he's more than an employee. He's the freaking warden of the prison. But
yeah,
let's understate it. That's okay. That's okay. No blame. Hey, we have their blog. After former Westville prison, Gordon, no, left the stand. Okay, let's go down to 4 o'clock. So this is Gallipo's is 4 o'clock. 4 p.m. Richard Allen's time at Westville Correctional. Court returns from lunch. State calls John Gallipo, who was the warden when Richard Allen was imprisoned there. Gallipo says Allen lived in APOD A1, which included 4 cells for inmates on suicide watch. He described the cells being 12 by 8, the same size as other cells, included a bed bolted to the ground, a toilet, 3 sets of clothes, and 2 tablets to download apps, make calls, listen to music. He also said each suicide watch cell has a camera on the ceiling, and the lights were on 24 hours a day. Good Lord, if you want to torture me, like for real,
that's
put
not
me in a
uncommon.
room that can't ever be dark.
I know, right? That's horrible. And that is not uncommon with solitary confinement or torture type techniques. You know what I mean?
Seriously, like you could not do anything else to me. You could leave me bubble baths every night and an iPod. Wow, I'm dating myself. You could leave me a tablet with as much music as I wanted to download, and if I couldn't have it completely dark for 6 to 8 hours a night, I would go insane. I guarantee you I would go insane. Anyway, the lights were on 24 hours a day. Inmates on suicide watch were seen by medical staff daily, had recreational times 5 times a week. 5 times a week? That's less than once a day. And showered 3 times a week. That's less than once every 2 days.
3 times a week. So no wonder he come to court sometimes looking all dirty and nasty. Y'all didn't even care if he got a bath.
Gallipo added that Allen saw his family twice while at Westville. How long was he in Westville?
A long time. And right before he was transferred from Westville to the other prison, his wife and mom were supposed to come visit, and they quickly moved him and they couldn't go visit.
He was arrested in October of 2022.
Yeah, he went to prison within a few days of that.
He was in Westville for 14 months, and he saw his family twice.
Yes, and that is where all the confessions came from, was Westville. And people are like, oh, but he confessed. Yeah, but do you know the circumstances behind those damn confessions? No, you don't. Are you willing to sit down and have a conversation and listen and hear me out about it? The man was tortured while he was there. Legitimately. We're hearing that right now. If you how is allowing your family to come see you going to harm you? Now, we heard what Labredo said the conditions were like when he went to go interview Allen. They put him in a large cafeteria type place and had Allen in the middle of the room in a tiny little cell, makeshift thing. And he couldn't even sign documents or view material with them freely because he couldn't see. I mean, it was crazy. the stuff. And that was coming from the attorney that was handpicked by Gull to replace the ones that she kicked off. Go ahead and finish reading, though, before I get off on a little tangent.
No, that's a good tangent because, okay, I'm going to read that one more time.
Okay.
Inmates on suicide watch were seen by medical staff daily, had recreational 5 times, showered 3 times. Gallipo added that Allen saw his family twice while at Westville, being the only inmate granted that privilege. Well, he was also the only inmate in your prison that hadn't been convicted of a crime yet. He was in pretrial detention. So don't give me that. Don't give me that bullshit. He was the only
But we
inmate
gave him
granted
a
that
special
privilege.
privilege. Yeah, we gave him a special privilege, y'all. Don't get mad at us. We did right by him. Bullshit. I mean, not every person we know from history, not every person in prison is actually the right person. There have been many wrongful convictions proven and overturned. And like, I think it was Andrea who mentioned that a lot of them were based on false confessions. So, did y'all purposely put that man there to break him, to get that confession you needed because you didn't have rock solid evidence to prove he did a damn thing other than be where he said he was the day this happened? Man. You still there, Joe? What happened? Let me see. Let me read this.
I had to mute myself. Had the
They're
fur
good.
grandbaby, the fur grandbabies were barking at the back door to get let in. They're like, "Don't torture us. Don't leave us out here where
Right?
it's bright all day long."
Right?
All right. Gallipo said Allen was first watched by other inmates before correctional officers. News 8's Kyla Russell reports this shift only happened after he received legal mail on April 3rd. April 3rd, 2020. What kind of sense does that make? He gets
What now?
he gets a letter from his attorneys and they assign inmates to watch him. What
Make it
is
make
going on?
sense. It doesn't
Gallipo
make
said
any
Allen
sense.
was first watched by other inmates before correctional officers in parentheses watched him. News 8's Kyla Russell reports this shift only happened after he received legal mail on April 3rd, 2023.
So, okay, you got mail. So now we're going to do this, this, and this because you got some mail?
Now we're going to send spies into your cell or around your cell or outside of your cell.
Because you got mail from your attorney? Oh, I mean, that's insane. How can
Gallipo,
they can't keep justifying this? It doesn't. There's no justification.
I hope that the jury is reading this as I'm reading it, and obviously because we don't have freaking cameras in the courtroom, we don't know how the jury's reacting, and we don't know how it's said, we don't know how the questions are asked and how they're responded to, and there is a lot that goes into that.
Well, so we'll have to wait and see this evening from some of our attorney friends that are actually in there who don't mind coming out and reporting those exact details we're looking for, because they get it. They understand the context is absolutely something we need to hear.
Gallipo added that Allen used the toilet in the cell, but also used the toilet water to wash his face.
Probably because y'all didn't get him no other water and you got him on. Oh, Lord.
State showed State's Exhibit number 292, Richard Allen's request for an interview, which read, "I am ready to officially confess." That's the one that we've seen a recreation of.
Okay.
Right?
Officially confess. And like I've said, you got to come out here and tell us you got 60 plus confessions, but no official I did it statements.
Butterfly
Call
or
my
Salty, do you
call
have that?
my attorney. Yeah,
Do you
got
have
my
that to
attorney
send
down
to me?
here. I'm sorry. If you're ready to make a formal confession, it needs to be done in writing, signed by everybody, and have your attorney here with you because you are absolutely. Then none of these were formal confessions. They're just confessions. But if your guy is telling you, I'm ready to confess, by God, you need to get everybody down there right now, get the attorneys involved, sit down and have that interview with him, document it, memorialize it, and have him sign those legal confessions. That never happened here. Or we wouldn't be in trial right now. He'd be confessed, done deal, we're done. End of story. That hasn't happened. Maybe because his attorneys knew better and said, we're not playing that game.
All right. I'm going to pull that up real quick so we can talk about it. No, I don't think it's in the right format.
Look at the comments here. Word salad.
Yeah. All right. So we'll keep going through.
Yes, supposedly he made phone calls to his wife and mother, or family, to his wife at least, and made some more confessions. But were those just like these random written confessions? The conditions he was kept in during those and I think that might be one reason why they didn't have a formal sit-down confession meeting and sign these documents and let's get this case closed out. Because if you got a client or you got a suspect confessing in any other case out here in America, you're going to want that formal confession signed and stamped, documented, we're done. Because once they provide that confession, you don't even go to trial after that. They've confessed. End of story. That has not happened here.
Wait there.
Butterfly wanted to know, did you say something to her? And Butterfly, appreciate you being here, girlfriend. I know you're working and stuff. You may be off now, but I know you have been working, so
I was just
appreciate you
looking.
coming
I
in.
was looking for that confession, and I found it, but I'm not sure it's in a JPEG format to be able to
Show
share
it.
it. Yeah.
Oh yes, I just walked back outside and I have it saved on my desktop as well. I can't. I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone in StreamYard, so it won't. I can't do a whole lot other than look at chat. I can't even type back to the guys in chat. It'll throw me out for some reason. I just have to look at the comments and address them like that.
Let's see if it will let me share this. We'll find out. Screen.
I have not seen anything that
Here we go.
I'm not even going to address.
There we
it. Never
go.
mind.
Hey, it pulls it up. So this is a recreation from one of the media outlets that was allowed to view this. Indiana Department of Correction request for interview received March 5th, 2023. So he was in Westville until December. So he had been in solitary for the 4 months after that, at least.
Yeah, and I was looking at a comment. I got it saved to the computer, but they've already filed to have Jesse James from the prison come in to trial. They've asked for a transport for him to come in as a defense witness, as he's like one of the prison inmates.
So this, one of the things that jumps out right away is the handwriting, and obviously it's a recreation, so you got to wonder how close is this to his handwriting, but it's all over the place. It does not bespeak to me somebody who is in a good mental frame of mind, who is mentally healthy. It's all over the place. I am ready to officially confess killing Abby and Libby. I hope I get the opportunity to tell the families I'm sorry. Does that sound like an honest confession letter to you?
No, I mean, it could be, but I'm telling you right now, as a prosecutor, if I'm going to put myself in those shoes, if I got a suspect offering to make confessions or already making them, I'm coming down there and asking you to your face, are you ready to formally confess? Let's get it on the record. That's what matters. And as far as someone asked, do we have proof he was abused in prison? Well, according to his other attorney that was assigned to the case by Judge Gold, he was. And we know that the guards, prison correction officers, were proudly wearing their Odinite patches and recording Rick Allen while he was discussing things with his defense attorney, which is illegal. So that's all documented. So yeah, kind of do have it in documentation. So we're at that just now getting these confessions. The judge has allowed all of them to come in, which may not be bad for the defense to allow them all to come in, because they're random and all over the place. And some of these confessions, he says he shot the girls and buried them. The girls were not shot and they were never buried. Now, could he have made that up later? Because, oh, I done confessed something I shouldn't, and I'm going to say this and that. All that could be true, but it's not looking that way. And when you stack up everything else that's already come out during the trial, not hearsay bullshit or stuff we're making up in our head or theory, crazy theories, stuff based on court documents and what's coming out in the testimony during trial leading up to this, these confessions aren't going to, I don't think they're going to stick the way that the state's wanting them to. Because I think the defense is going to be able to bring out the conditions he was kept in. And I see the comments about signing the documents on the Halidol. I heard that earlier today. Normally, when you go to court here in Florida, the judge will ask you, are you on any medications that may or may not affect your ability to understand what is happening here today? You can say yes or no. It's on you to say it. So, but if you're already on heavy drugs like Halidol, and for people who don't know, that's a heavy medication. You can say, react, and do things you don't even know you did with a lot of these drugs that are out there to help mental illness. I got a problem with a lot of the mental health drugs being forced down Americans' throats right now. Because as somebody who legally suffers from PT, and I say legally because I have doctors who told me this, it wasn't something I made up on myself. I have PTSD and I have anxiety disorders, and I have very good reasons for them that I won't go into right now. But I don't like a lot of those medications they tried to tell me years ago I needed to feel better. They were wrong. I don't need any of those, honestly. I didn't. I did a lot of hard work, and people do need these medications, especially if you need to stabilize somebody. But while they're on these meds, they may not have the mental capacity to make the best decisions, and if you're on these long term or over medicated, they have a horrible effect on you. And they really do. That's why these judges ask you, are you on any medications that may make you not understand what's happening today? And a lot of that seems to be what was happening with Rick Allen. Because if you see him in court right now, thank God we got a new artist. We all graduated from the cartoon stage. We got a really good artist in there now. Once Rick was transferred from Westville to the other prison and no longer had the Odinist guards and all those weird meds he was getting, he began to look better, respond better, and can participate in his own defense. He couldn't do that for months at Westville. And when Libredo come out and confirmed that solidified it for me. Because I'm always going to have some doubt and I'm always going to have questions. But when I watched that man come out and do an interview with Barbara McDonald and state the things he put to me, he didn't have to come out and say a damn thing. He kind of put his career on the line when he did it. So I had a lot of respect for him coming out and doing that. So there's legitimate reasons to be concerned right now, and I'm just being really honest. That people are like, oh, y'all are just crazy. No, this is real things that are documented is why we have these questions. And I do got a lot of respect for Libredo coming out and making the statements that he made once he was off the case and the original attorneys that we have right now are reinstated.
All right, I'm responding to a troll right now. We're
Okay,
gonna
you
see
go
how it
right
goes.
ahead.
Yeah, Dave Anderson says he's leery about us pro Rick types, and I'm like, we're not pro Rick at all. We're pro justice, and if he did it,
Yeah.
we pray he's convicted, and if not, we
I'm
pray
gonna
that they find out who is guilty. And
And you, yeah, because you
Because Dave,
Wow.
okay, here's the point, Dave, because of the shitty way that the investigation was run and that law enforcement investigated this, we may never know. We may never get justice for Abby and Libby, and that is the
Oh,
true
hold on.
injustice in this.
Faking to get drugs and SSI. You know what, Dave? You can kiss my ass. Honest to God. You want me to tell you why I have PTSD? My daughter died 20 years ago at 16 years old, suddenly of a brain aneurysm that exploded in her brain. So when you put your child in the ground, regardless of the circumstance, it is a very hard pill to swallow and live with for the rest of your entire life. And I'm in a real good place right now, so don't feel sorry for me. Because I have other children and grandchildren that I love dearly, and I had to fight my way back to them once I lost my oldest child. And if you know anything about me, which you probably don't, because I wasn't going live during the height of the Koberger bullshit, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. I'm quite the opposite. I'll look for the truth regardless of where it takes me. And I follow the court documents, and I follow the evidence of trials, and I'm following the evidence in this trial, along with the people here with me. That's where we're basing our facts from, is what we're seeing coming out. We've all had suspicions for a long time and did theorize on stuff that we saw in court documents. So have a good day, regardless. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people come in here just to try to get people to, trigger you and make you go off and appear crazy and all the things. Good luck with that with me, buddy. It don't work. I'm just going to tell you what I think, period.
Butterfly was quick with the trigger on that. I actually went to put him in a timeout, and then I'm like, no, I'm going to let him hear what Salty has to say.
Well, thank you for giving me that little minute there, because sometimes I can go off and like, I don't like to get triggered, and I'm trying not to get triggered, but I see dumbass comments, and sometimes they just need to be addressed. Butterfly knows when we're on my channel and we're live, your girlfriend's got full range. I trust her. If
Absolutely.
I'm busy talking or reading something and she needs to take action, she's got full permission to do what she needs to do.
Yep. Butterfly is an awesome mod. Appreciate you so much, girl.
And she knows I don't mind people coming in with questions and different opinions. That's what it's about. We have freedom of speech in this country. We should be able to talk and debate things, without making accusations about you, because you're a supporter of this and a supporter of that or whatever, So she understands where I come from that, but she also has full reign to take care of something if she needs to, if somebody's crossing the line.
All right, let's try and get through the rest of Gallipo's testimony here.
Yeah, because it's important. It's important. Sorry, everyone. Appreciate you guys being here.
Salty, do not ever apologize, ever.
All right. Thank you.
You are you, and you get to be you.
Well, thank you.
On my channel.
I'm a little much for some people sometimes, apparently.
Nope, you're right on. So Gallipo described the several times that Rick Allen admitted and apologized to him about the murders. So this is all verbal testimony. There is no corroborating evidence entered in. As far as I know, this is just Gallipo saying what Rick Allen said to him. Allen also told him that he threw out the box cutter used to kill the girls in a CVS dumpster.
Whoa,
so I'm just going to get a little trigger warning here. I'm going to say Abby's cut to her throat was minimal, but Libby's was not. Libby's throat was sliced 4 to 5 times, including through both carotid arteries and the jugular. And you're going to tell me that a plastic box cutter with a razor blade knife went through all of those, and then he took it back with him and threw it away in a CVS dumpster.
Okay, so you're right. Now, think about this for a second. You had your expert come and testify the other day that once he was what was he, the autopsy guy or whatever, whatever he was, I don't remember. Anyway, he gets home and he's in his garage and he sees a box cutter he's got laying there. He's like, huh, that might have made the marks I saw on their neck. Now, did he tell somebody of in charge that? And now we got Rick confessing he used a box cutter.
What a coincidence.
Right? What a damn coincidence. I would come home with a box cutter. I used to be a fast food restaurant manager. I always came home with a damn box cutter in my pocket. There was, so yeah, he worked at CVS and had access to a box cutter. So does a lot of people out there. But a box cutter's not going to do what you're describing, Joe. I just don't imagine that being the case.
There are the old-fashioned quote unquote box cutters
Yeah.
that are almost made like knives. They have like a solid metal handle and they have a solid razor blade. It's actually thicker than a razor blade. It's thicker than modern box cutter. So
That's right. He came home from his when he left from his deposition, he determined it could have been the box cutter shit.
right. Yep.
So is that where Rick was told to say he did it with a box cutter? The gun theory is not going to work here, so let's go with a box cutter. Jesus Christ.
Despite the confession, Gallipo said Allen's treatment did not change. We kept him in solitary confinement, so maybe we could extract some more confessions from him. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, but if these confessions were consistent, right, with the information written in them, if they were absolutely consistent. Okay, now I'm gonna maybe I'll believe him a little more, but I'm still gonna want that formal confession. Our guy has confessed completely. End of story. We don't even got to go to trial now. That would have been a neat little package wrap up right there. But it didn't happen that way. They were just random and all over the place. So it's crazy.
Cray. Then apparently Rosie came up to do cross-exam of Gallipo.
Yay.
I still can't get over that last statement though on direct. Despite the confession. So here you have an inmate that confesses to you that he did a double murder and you don't memorialize it in any type of report. You just like remember it mentally. Oh yeah, this guy confessed to me. And he confesses to you and his incarceration situation doesn't change. His mental health treatment does not change. He stays where he's at. He stays where he's at. He stays in solitary. His Dr. Walla comes in a couple times a week to check in on him. He has either inmates or guards posted outside of his cell listening to everything continually. He has his meetings with his defense attorneys recorded at least on video, if not on audio. That doesn't change after his confession. Nothing changes. What world is this? What world is that?
Not our world. It's Indiana's little world there, or Carroll County's little world. I don't mean to
that's
name the whole entire state.
Yeah. Right. Or where did he go after Westville? I don't remember. I don't care. It's Indiana Department of Corrections. It's the IDOC world. That's what it is. It's the IDOC world that will put somebody in solitary confinement for 3 years. I have the case number I can share with you. We'll get to it someday. A guy was held in solitary for 3 years, sued the IDOC and won.
Yeah. I forgot the name. Wabash. That's right, Bill. Thank you. It was Wabash prison, Joe, that he was sent to on the second. Yeah.
Thank you. Allen's attorney, Rosie, begins cross. Rosie asked about the safekeeping order, which was by the original judge in Carroll County, saying the Department of Corrections took Allen into custody while the case was pending. IDOC. He gets sent to prison in pretrial confinement. Rosie then described the layout of Westville, presenting a map of the facility it's a medium security state prison with 3,000 inmates. It has a maximum security unit within where Allen was housed. So he was in the maximum security unit when he was in pretrial detention.
And that's insane.
Rosie,
We have that's a direct violation of rights. It should be.
Rosie described the max security prison, part of the prison, as a prison within a prison. Westville is one of the 3 most secure prisons in Indiana. Somebody in pretrial detention that denied 20 to 25 times in the interrogation that he did it is in one of the 3 most secure prisons in Indiana in the max security unit. Rosie mentioned, go ahead.
No, I'm go ahead. I'm just thinking.
Rosie called it the hole. I'm surprised that McClellan didn't lose his mind and object to that. And
It's called the hole in Florida county jails. I've
right.
talked to girls doing some of the work that I do. I have talked with girls who come out of the county jail, and they're like, "Oh, I got thrown in the hole." What's the hole? That's the little room you go to
It's
when you've been
solitary, yes.
bad. Yeah, when you
Yep.
break a rule, you got to go to the hole now, and that's what it is. No windows, nothing. You're isolated with the lights on, like Joe described earlier.
I'm still working on my interview with a Tippecanoe County former inmate that was in the hole for 2 weeks. And of course, that interview is going to be called 2 weeks in the hole, but it hasn't been secured yet, so I'm not going to tease it too much.
Yeah.
Rosie also mentioned when inmates are on suicide watch, they're in the special cells on average a few days a week. Allen was under suicide watch for 13 months. Rosie said he was not aware of a pretrial detainee being held that long in suicide cell in the state.
If they were so worried about his state of mind and his suicide possibilities, they should have made sure he had got the adequate help he needed or at that point. But they failed it on every level, you know. So now you have to wonder how many people sitting in prison suffering severe mental illness problems being tortured while they're there. Even the ones that have been convicted and put in, they still have their basic human rights still have to be met. That's like the law. So there's so many violations here, so many. And if a jury finds him not guilty, they're set up for a bunch of lawsuits, man.
So, Gallipo described Rick Allen's cell and his time at Westville like this. He came to the prison on suicide watch, by the way, placed on a safekeeping order by Judge Diener, who promptly recused himself after putting him on in the safekeeping order. The bed was barely off the ground. Go ahead.
Butterfly, check the name of the person that you timed out. Zone 31 saying we got it wrong. Zone 31, are you Dave? Are you back under an alt account? I just have to ask right now. I've had issues with these multiple alt accounts doing things before in streams. So check it out, girlfriend.
This happened, a week ago? 6 days ago? Anyway. So he came in on suicide watch. His bed was barely off the ground, so 2 or 3 inches, 4 inches. One narrow window that was broken but later fixed. A window in a prison is broken. What?
Well, isn't that a dangerous situation? You could get some glass and do a lot of damage.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
If you're on suicide watch, are you putting a suicidal inmate in with a broken window?
You're hoping that they'll get a piece of that broken glass and do themselves off at that point?
Yeah.
Then you don't got to worry about, oh, Lord.
They're going to Epstein themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steel toilet, steel door to a concrete cell, could not interact with Gen Pop. Food received through a small slit in the door. Like, I'm totally getting Shawshank Redemption vibes here. No table or desk to sit and eat. No chair. He had a tablet that was broken, but later it was replaced. Here you go. Why don't you contact your family with this? Oh, it's broken. So sorry. So sorry. He was monitored while he showered, but he had to wear a smock while bathing. Did not get to leave the cell on Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays. They got a problem with Tuesdays?
I guess. That was his day. You're in there all day, 24 hours.
Is that some kind of sacred day or something? It's weird.
Gallipo then explained Allen's visits with family. The visits happened at a different facility than Westville. He wore hand restraints with a box over his hands. And we heard that was only 2 times in 14 months. He only got to see his family twice in 14 months. He's in pre-trial detention. He hasn't been convicted of shit. And his family can only see him twice in 14 months. You tell me what that would do to your mental and emotional state. Rosie referred to his restraints as a dog leash. That's not going to do anything to your mental and emotional state either. Rick Allen was not allowed food or drink during the visits, though Gen Pop inmates are allowed these things. So he's not even granted the privileges of convicted felons in Gen Pop.
Right. And we know from his interrogation videos from this morning that we heard about, he'd already told them, I have depression and anxiety issues. They took that and ran with it, man. And they really made it worse tenfold, which is another violation of your rights. Because regardless, even if somebody confesses or they're convicted and all these things, the United States still gives them a rights, to go by. And these are not his are just being trampled all over every step of the way. It's crazy.
Rosie, go ahead.
But I'm just trying to check if we still have a mod in the chat here. Florence, don't come in cussing our people that are been in here chatting for a while. There's no need for it. They didn't say anything horrible to you. I'm watching. This is an issue when we have these cases and people want to get sideways with people. There's no reason for it. Thanks, Kel. Got you. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Because if Butterfly is not going to be able to handle this all on her own, if I don't even know how big chat is right now, but there's some stuff being said that they need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we don't need
one
that.
thing. Yeah, we're not going to sit here and victim shame or victim blame without any kind of proof of anything. And we're not going to go at each other in chat and cuss people just because they didn't agree with something you said. And I saw the comment that you were referring to saying, fuck you too, or whatever it is you said there. Don't do that. There's no reason for it.
All right. We got that cleaned up.
Okay.
Thanks, Kel. Appreciate it. Alan wasn't allowed food or drink, even though Gen Pop is. So I'm a little confused by that statement, though, because they did say that Gen Pop was not allowed family visits, which doesn't make sense to me. So we're getting contradictory information because I know Gen Pop gets family visits. So I think what we heard earlier had to have been some type of confusing statement. So anyway, he doesn't even have the rights that Gen Pop inmates who have been convicted of felonies are allowed. Rosie told the court that the attorneys weren't allowed to check their phones while they were with Rick Allen. So they're being treated like prisoners while they're in a defense meeting with their client within the prison. They were not allowed to check their phones. I mean, you have a member of the court and one of the defense attorneys or both of the defense attorneys that are told you're not allowed to check your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Their phone calls with him were not recorded, but they had a camcorder to tape their visits with him. Prison officials used force twice on Allen after he had visits with attorneys. What the?
Now, why would you do that? And we have Mr. the the guards that was wearing he had an affidavit. It's like legit. He says, I tried not to use force with Rick Allen. I purposefully tried to avoid using force. What? You're going to single out that one inmate, and that's the one you're going to purposefully try to avoid being mean to? But yet, that's not what, that's stupid. You got 3,000 inmates or more in your prison, and you're just going to decide, well, this one's fragile. I'm not going to be mean to him. Why would you put that in your affidavit? Because you're trying to make yourself look better.
Prison
They can't.
officials used force twice on Allen after he had attorneys' visits. Russell reported that Allen was tased. He was tased after he met with his attorneys in prison, in solitary confinement, in pretrial detention.
Now, okay, so tell me why you tased him? You know, what was he doing to cause you to tase him? What story are you going to give me? Where if you're saying you tased an inmate, there has to be a report written up about these incidents, and you got to give an explanation as to why you had to go and take that step. So what was he doing to cause you to tase him?
All right, I'm gonna let you keep reading. I got to take a break for about 30 seconds.
Okay, let me get off the chat where I can see the screen.
Yep. So we just talked about being tased. So we're in like the third paragraph.
Okay. Rozzi said that Allen's companions in suicide cells were incentivized to tell on him. The companions also weren't allowed to speak to Allen or repeat anything Allen said, but told people outside. Rozzi adds that the prison guards do not have any formal mental health training, and that is true. Gallipo continued testifying, saying he did not document any of Allen's verbal confessions he made to him. He also said he never talked to Carroll County Sheriff's Office about Allen and did not follow up on why he was moved out of Westville. If he was transferred from your prison for particular reasons, you would want to follow up and find out what's going on here. I did not neglect my duties, Gallipo said. State prosecutor in McClellan jumped in to say he had Allen on suicide watch as an order from his psychologist. Rozzi asked one final question about the camcorders during the visits, which Gallipo said was because the room didn't have any cameras. So your little isolation room doesn't have cameras, so you're going to tell your guards to videotape everything. Were y'all videotaping him 24/7 or only when his attorneys were present? And you're going to say there was no audio involved, just the camera. That doesn't make any sense. Are y'all doing it to protect his attorneys in case he flipped out and went mad on them? Or, I mean, what the hell? Let me check chat while Joe's away, guys. Let me see what's going on here.
I'm back.
Oh, you're good. I was just going to catch up on chat real quick. I see that someone did get timed out by accident. She hit the wrong one, so sorry about that.
It's all done in the best interest of the public good. Oh, really, Shanny? Really, Shanny kids? Videos of the abuse? Let's see the videos of the confessions. Oh, wait, that didn't happen.
Yeah. We would like to see the video of a lot of things.
Let's see the video. Let's see the video of Rick telling Holman in the car, it doesn't matter, it's over. Let's see that.
Right.
Let's even hear that. Let's even hear an audio of that. You gotta
remember now
have it on both sides. You gotta have it on both sides. You can't ask for video of that and not.
And if there was video, it probably would have gotten lost somewhere or recorded over. They've said that time and time again in court on the witness stand. We've lost this, we've misplaced that, we've recorded over this, we don't have that. Parts of Sarah's interview are gone. You know, the one where she stated muddy and bloody, according to the witness herself. She was told they lost that video of her saying that. So come again. I'm like, we literally, you guys, not you guys, but people like that, are y'all not paying attention? Are you just out? I mean, you're probably trolls, so it doesn't even matter. You're probably not even worth addressing at this point. You're going to believe what you want to believe. But this is documentation stuff. They have literally sat there on the witness stand, the state's witnesses, and said, we don't have this anymore. We don't have
Okay.
that. We lost this and lost that, and recorded over this and that. Crazy shit.
Shanny. Okay. Yeah, old Richard is innocent. Let him go. Let him go in your town. How about this? Let's just prove him guilty. Let's do what the law says we should do and prove him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If he's the guy, there is nobody more than me that wants to see him convicted. But
Yep.
it's up to the police, it's up to law enforcement, and it's up to the prosecutor and the experts to prove it to a jury. And they haven't done shit to do that. Their whole case crumbles every single day that we hear of the trial results. So don't give me this shit about, oh yeah, he's innocent, let him go. This isn't.
And if he
this
is
isn't-
guilty, the
Yes.
state fumbled their case and failed the victims miserably. Because they failed to test a lot of vital DNA in this case. Failed to
They
test.
they failed to collect bloody sticks. There were
Yeah.
sticks found on the girls, and they left them at the scene for 3 weeks.
And then
That's-
decided, oh, we might need those after all. Let's go back and get them now. After
The
they've been in the
conservation
elements.
officer found them. The freaking Dan Doolin found them, and if he can find them, anybody can find them.
Well, isn't that amazing that Doolin was the one to go find them all of a sudden? Hell, he found your tip years ago and didn't remember he even interviewed the guy.
Oh, y'all getting me stirred up on this.
Oh, it might be time for us to go, Joe.
We might want to. There's probably going to be some stuff coming out that we might want to go check out, huh?
This is true. It's 5:00 my time, Central Time here.
Yeah, it's 6:00.
court
There's going to be people coming out of court pretty soon.
It should be wrapping up for the day, huh? And
Yep.
we do need to get I know that a lot of people in our chat right now are the same ones that are following the case with us, and they're going to be in certain chats tonight hearing the latest update from the ones that were there and heard it all with their own ears. So I know they're going to be in there listening too, just like we are.
Yep. All right.
Man.
We got more testimony to go over, but there are going to be minds that are a lot more acute than mine going over today's testimony. Andrea Burkhart, Bob Mata, and Lawyer Lee, they were all in court today, and they will have some really intelligent things. I wish I could portal you to one of their lives, but I don't even have notification of any of their lives. So, and I don't know how to portal.
Butterfly, if you're here, I mean, most of us are probably following those channels. If you want to drop a link to Andrea Defense Diaries, Lawyer Lee, if you guys can do that, Kel or Butterfly, one of you, that'd be great. And but those are the names of the channels: Defense Diaries with Bob Mata and Allie, his wife, Andrea Burkhart's channel. There you go. Thank you. She dropped mine as well. I always forget about my channel, and I do go live from there. Joe joins me over there from time to time, and so does Butterfly. But I sometimes receive swamp signal, and right now it's just easier to go. Thank you for doing that, Butterfly. I appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate having everybody in the chat today. For the most part, it was an excellent chat with a few road bumps, but
yeah, they're gonna come in, and if we just address them, whatever, But
yep.
A lot of people here are good, open-minded people and can see what we see. So we do appreciate y'all coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks, chat. Thanks, Butterfly. Thanks, Kelt. Appreciate you jumping in and helping out. Salty,
Yes.
as always. It was amazing. Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you. Thank you. We needed to go live. We haven't done it in a little bit, and we chat all the time, guys. Joe and I, Butterfly, we're chatting, and going over things we've seen and taking our notes, and so we're not out there as much as we probably should be. But there's a lot of good people out there doing this. But we appreciate you guys coming in and being with us and listening in, and We do appreciate it.
Hey, everybody, go jump into those other chats, go jump into those other lives, figure out what went on today. And
Yeah.
appreciate you having here, and we'll catch you next time.
Yep. We'll be back soon. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.